Great. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining another Redwood City School Board board meeting tonight. Evelyn, roll call, please.
Trustee Weekly,
Present.
trustee McAvoy,
Present.
trustee Wells,
Here.
vice president Lawson,
Here.
president Marquez.
Here. Thank you. Again, welcome everyone to another Redwood City School District. Glad to see a full house.
Recording in progress.
And reconvening from from closed session. I'm sorry, I'm reading the agenda and I'm already on. I apologize for that. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, I would like to ask, given that we have a lot of wonderful teachers, principals, assistant principals, parents, staff members here from our school sites. I was wondering if we'd like to move them up earlier in the agenda so they can all go home sooner. Yes, I see some clapping back there because we have a lot of them in the audience. So I was wondering if we could move 9, the school and community reports, in after 7. So between 7 and 8. I guess we're doing the approval of the agenda right now. And that would also include our auditor as well, since I think that'll be on the quicker side. I think that was all I had. I don't know how the rest of you feel about that, but we try to be respectful of our staff. Yeah, very much.
I'll move to approve with the changes suggested.
Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you. And I'm sorry, I got started without saying, for those that need translation, para los que necesitan traducción, por favor, pueden llamar al 978-990-5137 y presiona el número 8377041 y el signo de números para la contraseña. And if you are in the public, you are encouraged to speak to the board on issues concerned, whether or not the issues are on the agenda. To address the board, please complete a speaker's card if you're here, and if you are online, please go ahead and fill out the Google Sheet. If you wish to speak to the board on a subject listed on the agenda, you will be called to the podium at the time the item is being considered by the board. If the item is not on the agenda, you will be called to the podium during oral communication. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person per topic unless otherwise noted. And again, any electronic devices, if you guys can please turn off the sound. Thank you. Do we have any oral communication?
Yes, so we have,
I think the oral communication is going to be after 9 now, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, because we moved 9.
we also have one for the calendars, so I don't know if you want to keep that under consent.
What do you mean by that? I'm sorry.
We have,
Let's move that off of consent then. After
Okay.
we go back to approval of the agenda, we'll move the calendar to action. And
I guess I didn't understand. So what about?
we have a speaker card for the, what is it, agenda item?
10.19.
Yes, 10.19, thank you. So if we can move that one.
I move that we take consent item 10.19 and move it under action items under section 11.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I did neglect to report out on closed session. And so that was just, we received information from our attorney and no action was taken. And moving along with the agenda, because we made those changes, item 9 is school and community reports. 9.1, it's information on financial audit report for Redwood City School District for 2021-2022.
Okay, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Nathan Edelman with Bailey and I am the
We're gonna need to get you a mic.
independent auditor. Yeah, I'll take a microphone. Hopefully you can hear me. The folks online. Um, Okay, am I good to go? Okay, well, my name is Nathan Edelman with Ide Bailey, and I am the independent external auditor. So I won't go into all of the details about the report, but just a few high level things. You have within the packet, we've completed the audit of the district's financial statements for the fiscal year end June 30, 2022. Just the scope of the audit, it's easy to say, we audit anything and everything. Really, the scope of the audit on the financial statements is to make sure that those financial statements comply with the governmental accounting rules. It sounds simple, but these rules are very thorough. They apply to all local governments, and our job is just to excuse me. Our job is to ask the questions, to look at documents, but really just make sure that those financial statements comply with those accounting rules. We also, as part of the audit, there's something called federal and state compliance. It's called a single audit, but you look at not just debits and credits, but is the district using restricted funds consistent with the grant agreement, be it child nutrition, special education. And then if there's internal control deficiencies that are identified along with this audit findings, those are required to be reported out. Also within the packet, there's the Proposition 39, excuse me, Proposition 39, the general obligation bond audit. And there's kind of two components to that. One, there's a set of financial statements that is an extract. It's a portion of the district's accounting records specific to the bond program, almost as if that bond program is its own entity, balance sheet, income statement. Same scope of work there, which is, do those comply with the accounting rules? And then there's what's called a performance audit. And you can think of that as almost as a compliance audit. There are procedures that or I'll call them compliance requirements that are published by the state. And it tells auditors, when you're doing these Prop 39 performance audits, it's one, make sure that the funds are spent on construction, make sure that they are spent on on what's called listed projects within the specific ballots for the school district. And then to the extent that there are salaries that are charged to those bond programs, make sure that those have some kind of a nexus, some kind of a connection directly to the bond program, as in you can't charge teachers and school administrators cannot be funded by the bond program. So we go in and that's the purpose, that's the scope of the audit. At the end of the day, excuse me, at the end of the day, we are just reporting back. There's a few pages within the report that has the firm letterhead, has what's called our audit opinions, but it is management of the district. It's those on the finance side, those within the bond program that are responsible for ensuring that the numbers are correct and that funds are used appropriately. So, fast forward, end of the audit. Really what we have is a number of opinions, but they're all what we call clean or unmodified audit opinions. Really the opinions on the financial statements, it goes on for a few pages, but somewhere in there, but financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with governmental accounting standards. And there's no internal control deficiencies, and there were no instances of non-compliance with federal or state grants, or with respect to the Proposition 39 bond audit. So I can go into it in a lot more detail. But that's kind of the high level 10,000-foot conclusion wrap up of the audit. So with that, I just thank district staff for putting up with the auditors and supporting the audit. And otherwise, I'll turn it over. If there's any questions or anything I can elaborate on further, I'm happy to try. Thank you.
Thank you for the information. Are there any questions or comments from board members?
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah, it looked like a clean audit from the there were no findings. I also saw that the finding from last year had been determined resolved, so that was good to see in there. So thank you, Rick, and the business office, and Priscilla before you, who was the audit year there, for keeping us all together. It was nice to see read through the financial and performance report for the bond, and clearly followed the two objectives of whether the expenditures charged were in accordance with the project list approved by the voters, and whether when salaries were charged to Measure T, they were in support of the bond activities. So thanks for auditing that and seeing that the conclusion was that in all significant respects, the district has properly accounted for the expenditures. And similarly, for our annual financial report, looking through the federal program, internal controls and compliance, and state compliance, it was nice to see the work that went in there, the description. It's actually a really good resource on school finance as well, as a good primer. And so I appreciate the work there, and everybody at this district office that was involved in making sure the numbers were right before and the audit went through cleanly.
I'll just say ditto. And I do want to just expressly thank Rick and the whole budget team, because I know it's a lot of work to go through the audit. And then thank you, of course, to our auditor. I agree. It was a really wonderful, detailed audit and a great explanation of how school finance work, which is very different than business finance, right?
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, with that said, again, thank you very much. It was, again, very well explained. And again, not to be repetitive, but thank you, Rick, and the business office for all your help. And you and your team as an auditor, because you guys are here for like weeks getting all the information. So
yeah,
I appreciate that you guys do that for us. Thank you. So we do have a speaker's card for your item. Chris Rebel.
Hi, good evening. So I did have a couple one comment, actually, just one on this. With respect to salaries. So there is the comment about being able to take salaries and apply them against the bond program if they're doing work that's related to the bond program. I realize that there's a legal opinion that says that, but that is not a law. The law with respect to Prop 39 bond money says, and I didn't bring the right paper, but it essentially says it can be used for school facilities, construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, restoration of school facilities, including the furnishing and equipping of such facilities. It can be used for that. And then it says it cannot be used for teachers, administrator salaries, and other school operating expenses. So it's very clear what it can be used for and what it can't be used for. That is the California Constitution. That's the bargain when voters approved Prop 39. If you wanted to spend on anything, you can do anyway. So that is not the fact that there's an opinion by somebody does not allow that. And so that $400 and some thousand that's for administrator salaries and benefits related to allegedly the bond construction, I submit to you that's a violation of Prop 39. So.
Thank you. So moving right along, 9.2, report on school plans for student achievement for Roosevelt and Clifford schools.
Oh, you can go by. Hold on 1 second. Let's see.
All right, good evening. Superintendent Dr. Baker, President Marquez, board members, and cabinet members as well. I'd like to introduce the Roosevelt team who's presenting tonight. So I'm Tina Mercer, I'm the principal of Roosevelt. I have with me two assistant principals. I have Dr. Shanna Laney and Felicia McMenemy. And then I also have community school coordinator, Veronica Hernandez Lobos, and our halftime MTSS TOSA, Wendy Brown. So this is the team presenting tonight. So we'll get right into it, shall we? So the agenda It's the same as all the other board reports. So our first goal really has to do with the whole child. It really has to do with looking at things from a social emotional perspective, behavioral, and a lot of the supports that are put in place along those lines. The data we're going to specifically look at with regard to that are going to be around suspensions and attendance. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about suspensions. You can see what our target was for this year. We specifically were looking at 7th and 8th grade. We don't have a 6th grade this year, so we're specifically looking at middle school and 7th and 8th grade. And then we also looked at 4th and 5th grade as well. I'm happy to say that right now we're very much on target to hit below our 4th and 5th grade. We are actually a little above what our original target was for our middle school at the current time. But we do have a lot of different strategies that we're looking at, tier 1 all the way through to tier 3. Just want to touch on a few of them because there's a lot of them there, and don't want to go through all of it. But specifically, we have a social emotional learning curriculum. We're using the one that was adopted by the county or provided for us by the county, Changing Perspectives, and that's being done in every classroom. We also have a PBIS committee who works very closely with, they've got a variety of staff members on that committee, and we look at a school-wide incentive program. As a group, we're working very closely with SFSS, which is the San Francisco Coalition of Central Small Schools, to do a lot of really good equity work. As we tend to be a school that is predominantly white educators and a school with predominantly students of color, I thought that was really important work that we need to be able to do to address our student needs. And there's some simple things like phone collection, which 4th through 8th grade is done every single day. And then we have some really fun types of activities with Friendship Week, Wellness Week, and Mental Health Awareness Week with a lot of different activities at recess. Talk a little bit more about that later. We have a lot of different counseling services, and we'll talk about some of those in tier 2, but also in tier 1, we work with El Centro de Libertad, specifically on alcohol and drug awareness. We're doing a lot of workshops with our 5th through 8th grades on those types of things. We have Screen Team. We've done presentations with on sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression with Outlet to our middle school. Our middle school teams have actually done retreats, very specifically targeted some of the behaviors that our middle schoolers tend to demonstrate. So really looking at that and trying to get to the really meat of what students really need. And it's been a lot of goal setting, a lot of those types of things in those. Really important is we have common corners in every single classroom. We have them in our family center. We have them in our Reach room. Reach is our after school partner. And then we have a Gender Sexuality Alliance for our middle school as well. Tier 2 sort of steps it up just a little bit. We do have a lot of our counselors are actually doing sort of tier 2 social emotional learning activities in the classrooms. We have mental health counseling. We have check-ins for students who need it. We also have kids who want to do regular weekly sessions. We have a behavior specialist who's working with working to provide supports for specific students and specific classrooms as well. And then a number of us were trained in restorative justice, but we actually are talking about that a little bit later in terms of wanting to extend that across the entire staff as well. Another big piece of it, and I think when we look at the groups that are really involved with students, we have to look at the student, we look at the staff, we also have to look at the parents. So we do parent partnership meetings when we have students who have some concerning behaviors typically, or things that we are concerned about. Tier 3, we have a number of students who do have behavior contracts that they need to follow with very specifically outlines what they should be doing and the consequence if they don't, but also the rewards for when they do. There are multidisciplinary team meetings that we've had. We have very significant mental health counseling for some students who do see the counselor more than once a week, and then threat and risk assessments when that has actually come up as well. Okay. So what seems to be working? So we do have a lot of things that are working. I think the school-wide incentive program this year is really working. Kids really enjoy getting those raccoon tickets. The mental health counseling, which has been really significant this year, has been absolutely vital in terms of what we're doing to make sure our students are coming to class regulated, to helping them when they're not. We have lunch bunches on a fairly regular basis for students. Sort of certain kids will come each week, and then they get to do some kind of community activity through the family center and with our mental health partners. Huge partnerships with our mental health team. So One Life has been a big partner. El Centro de Libertad provides both counseling to students who have been impacted by drug and alcohol, but also those with some anger management. And then Friends for Youth provides some mentorship as well. And then we have lunch support from PE Plus, which this year is actually phenomenal as well. And definitely the parent partnerships. We know because fewer referrals during unstructured time, which seemed to be the predominance of them last year. Our kindergarten through 5th grades have really been very strong, far fewer referrals from them to the office. And then in the panorama survey, the students in 3rd to 5th expressed a higher level of school belonging, safety, and engagement, and 7th and 8th grade in school safety and belonging. The strategies that have not necessarily been working is the classroom SEL instruction, upper elementary and middle. So we're going to work a lot more with that team for next year. So we're considering changing. And I just jumped down a little bit because it's actually relevant first, is we've got a very focused middle school SEL program. We do it for the culture. That's what we're going to work with. We're only going to have 8th grade next year. So that'll be working with the 8th grade team very specifically. But co-taught SEL lessons with the counselors and the classroom teachers is really important for us. We've done some of it in sort of tier 2. We're really going to bring that into sort of tier 1 as well next year. And then as I said earlier, the restorative justice professional development and expanding the offering with, or encouraging more of our staff be trained through SFSS. Okay. And then for chronic absenteeism, I'm going to welcome our MTSS TOSA.
Good evening. I'm a little nervous. This is the first time I've done this, so bear with me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our chronic absenteeism at Roosevelt. Current data from the dashboard shows that about 176 of our students are in this category. And our African American and Black students, their attendance rate is about 89%. And our Mexican, South American, Central American population is at about 90%. The strategies for tier 1 that we are using to support attendance currently is we are distributing bus passes to those that need help with transportation. And we are also making a lot of phone calls to families, trying to figure out what we can do to support them in getting their students to school. Our tier 2 is parent attendance night, which we had in February, and I'll go into that a little further in just a minute. And then offering mental health counseling. And then tier 3, having an ESS therapist working with students with IEPs who are demonstrating significant school refusal and going through the SARB process. So the strategies that we know for sure are working is parent attendance night. We had a super strong parent turnout, so much more than I anticipated when I presented this idea to Tina, like, hey, let's try it, can't hurt, right? And it was a stormy night. And so I'm like, we are not gonna have any parents here because it is horrible outside. And we had a steady stream for almost an hour of parents coming through the door. I had phone calls and messages from parents. I had emails. I had teachers coming to me. This kid's parent came, they got the letter from you and they want to talk to you. Parents that I've been leaving messages for months prior. So it was really actually quite amazing to get such a strong turnout. And based on that, we have started to see kind of a change in the trend of attendance of those kiddos. Looking forward to things that we are considering changing, me going full-time next year so that I will be able to fully address the attendance needs. It's kind of not always had the attention that it should, but being part-time, it's hard to balance and prioritize everything that needs to get done. School attendance recognition each trimester. So having, whether it's an assembly or having, on the announcements, just acknowledging those kids that have improved attendance or have just good attendance. Doing home visits for those families that are more in the tier 3 level, needing extra support. Having more regular communication with parents, including text messages. Having the attendance nights, but quarterly. And then providing teachers with attendance data and having them also reach out to families and try to build those connections. Part of a lot of the work that I've done this year is actually building the connections with the families. When they hear that I'm calling for attendance, they're like, oh, like, they're like, I have to go. And I'm trying really hard to change that mindset for the families and just offer support and try to figure out what we can do because ultimately we want their kids in school. Thank you.
Good evening. Goal 2 focuses on supporting our emerging multilinguals who are culturally and linguistically diverse students. At Roosevelt, we have about 200 emerging multilingual students and about 48 students who are reclassified who we are currently monitoring. When we review our progress data on Goal 2, the data in our Roosevelt LCAP dashboard shows that over 51% of our students, our emerging multilingual students, have increased over 51%. And that's on level 1 LPAC for the 21-22 school year. Our reclassification rates in the spring of 2022, we reclassified 14 students. And this year, we have doubled that amount already with a total of 27 students. Our reclassification rates for students within 5 years of enrollment for both the spring of 2022 and the spring of 2023 have increased. In the Roosevelt LCAP, the dashboard, progress was shown 5% for the spring of 2022, and as of March 31st, 2023, 12%. So you can see we have exceeded our target goals for both 2022 and 2023. Our key strategies for Tier 1 include integrated ELD across all content areas, designated ELD 4 to 5 times a week, and we also have purchased some supplemental materials this year, frames for fluency for our lower grades, and also English 3D for our middle school students. For Tier 2, we have bilingual paraprofessionals for both 3rd to 8th grade and kinder to 2nd grade. For our 3rd to 8th grade students, we have support in small groups, and we also have classroom support for them. Our Tier 3 strategies include an intervention teacher who is specifically focused on literacy and intervention for our 3rd to 5th grade students. And also this year, we initiated data discussions with our parents and our students, going over their LPAC scores and helping them understand what they need to do so that they can be reclassified within 5 years. The strategies that are helping us reach our goals and targets is definitely designated ELD 4 to 5 times a week, and also are having bilingual professionals to support our newcomers. We know that these strategies are effective because we have seen improvement in our reclassification rates and also students making progress on their annual LPAC exam. For next year, we're considering making the following changes. One of the changes we'll be making is purchasing more supplemental materials. For example, we're considering purchasing language power for our 3rd to 5th graders. We will also be reviewing the California ELD standards across grade levels. In addition to reviewing the standards, we will be having data discussions, and we will review the proficiency levels for our emerging multilingual students and go over progress on the data for Goal 2. Lastly, one of our newest goals is we will be creating a standardized rubric for our classroom visits for designated and integrated ELD. The purpose of this will be as a guideline for the teachers to have a checklist when they're planning, and also when we're administrators or guests are coming in, we can look at which EL strategies are being used at the time. Thank you.
Good evening. So for Goal 3, we're going to focus on academics, and then looking at the iReady and CAS scores, and then the strategies that we use to address these targets. So for this slide, we look at iReady reading and iReady math, where specific groups of students were at or above grade level. And so I actually wanted to share the actual percentages from the growth that students have made from fall 22 to now. So for our in iReady reading for our emerging multilingual students, the target for spring 2023 was 15%. And so they're actually at 9%. And then for our students with exceptional abilities, the target for spring 2023 was 15%, and they are at 14%. And then for our students of Mexican, Central, or South American origins, the target was 30%, and they are at 23%. And then for our white students, the target was 60% and they're at 75%. Then for iReady Math for our emerging multilingual students, the target was 15% and then their actual is 7%. For our students with exceptional abilities, the target was 20% and they're actually at 9%. For our students of Mexican, Central, or South American origins, their target was 25% and their actual is 14%. And for our white students, the target was 55% and the actual is 63%. So when we look at the data, we can see that our white students have met their targets. And although our emerging multilingual students and then our students with exceptional abilities and our students of Mexican, Central, or South American origins have not made the targets yet, we have seen that they have made a lot of progress and growth. And so what I'm going to address next in the following slides is also the strategies that we've used. So in this slide, it shows the percentage of these specific groups of students who have met or exceeded the standards in CAS reading and CAS math. So the strategies that we've used to address these improvement targets for Tier 1, our staff has had monthly book clubs for K through 8th, and it also includes the administrators as well, which we're focusing on literacy. And so we meet in small groups, and it's books that people have chosen themselves. And so they discuss different literacy strategies and just different parts from the book as well and different research. We have our K3 integrated units. And then for kindergarten through 2nd grade, we adopted a supplemental flyleaf decodables. So that way the teachers can focus more on the phonics and foundational skills and build those as well with the students. We also have our district adopted curriculum in ELA and then also in math. For Tier 2 and Tier 3, our K2 reading intervention teacher in August to November, she met with 42 students 3 to 5 days per week during the school day. And then in December to March, she met with 32 students 3 to 5 days per week during the school day. Our bilingual paraprofessional has been supporting kindergarten through 2nd grade newcomer students and focusing on early literacy and communication in small groups. And so she started in March and she's going to work through June and work with 39 students 3 to 5 days a week. Our 3rd through 5th grade literacy intervention teacher, she started in January and she's been working twice a week with 42 students. And then from April until the end of the school year, she'll be working with an additional 5 students, so a total of 47 students. Our bilingual paraprofessional supporting 3rd through 8th grade newcomer students. And so we had one who worked up until a couple weeks ago who was working 3 days a week. And then starting next week until the end of the year, we're going to have someone who's working every single day, so full time. So that's great. And then our college advising prep small group math tutoring. They've been working since November with 35 students twice a week during school and then also after school. And then we added an additional 33 students starting in March until the end of the year. And then some of our classroom teachers have also been doing after school intervention as well. So we know that some of the strategies that are helping us, some of those strategies include the CAT math tutoring that's been providing small group support for a total of 68 students, which we hope to increase next year during school and after school. We also know our 3rd through 5th grade literacy intervention teacher who started in January. And we know this because of, we looked at the data as well, where in iReady Math, 81% of these students that were in CAT math tutoring rose a grade level with an average of 24 points. And then for iReady Reading, 14 of 37 of the 3rd through 5th grade students moved to grade level in the area of focus in just the 6 to 7 weeks of intervention. And then we don't seem to have any strategies that aren't working. And then what we're considering changing already our 3rd through 5th grade literacy intervention teacher, she's agreed to do 3 days a week next year. So that's really awesome. And then we'd love to expand CAP tutoring to include students in 2nd to 5th grade. So it's not just 3rd through 5th grade students. And then we also hope with the new math adoption for K-5 that this will provide more consistency and also rigor as well. Thank you.
Okay, so the next part is actually the nice, pretty fun part that we're talking about all the wonderful things that our school is doing. We have a lot of different school events, and they run from sort of PTA sponsored events. So we have a fabulous PTA made up of incredibly involved parents. We have a family dance to start off the year. We have Spooktacular Bingo, which is a fabulous annual event. And then we have a Jogathon, which is not only a super fun event, but it's also a huge fundraiser for our school. We have a lot of events planned around PBIS and around mental health. So we have a wellness week, friendship week. We're coming up to mental health awareness week as well. We have all different kinds of assemblies. We have assemblies on kindness, on the Roosevelt Way, which is really focusing on a lot of different things that make Roosevelt special. We also have cultural ones. So we did something special for Dia de los Muertos. And then we also had a lion dance troupe come for Chinese New Year, which was super exciting for everyone. We have spirit days, and those are actually designated by students in terms of what they want those days to, the theme of those days. We've had author visits and a variety of things. That's just a very quick snapshot of some of those things there.
The slide that you're seeing is student voice. This year, we really have focused on amplifying the student voice through different ways in partnership with PBIS, which we have about 8 teachers, the admin and I, and the mental health counselor. We have been fostering relationship with students and making sure that we have a strong foundation to foster that. We've had focus groups, different types of surveys every time we have activities. So based on student surveys, we have had retreats for middle school. We've had more classroom presentations and assemblies in the classroom with the students, awards, buddy classrooms that teachers are doing with other grade levels to expose them to different items. Calming corners, students have given us feedbacks of what they would like to see in their calming corners in the classroom. And also a lot of students have self-referred, which is huge for us here at Roosevelt. Becoming a community school, having a family center, students are learning to navigate resources and self-advocate for themselves. Spirit days, and we also have some quotations here. Students would like to have more education about mental health, about self-awareness and taking care of themselves. They would like to have how to have more safety awareness and how they could have more conflict resolution in the school and really building relationships. We really try to be out there during recess time in partnership with the mental health and the partners and having tables with information, stickers, fun events for them to really have a good time at Roosevelt. We want them to leave Roosevelt remembering that they had a great experience at Redwood City School District.
So we have very active community and family engagement. We have, as I said, we have phenomenal community, we have phenomenal families at Roosevelt. So ways in which we engage parents on a regular basis is through things like Coffee with the Principal or Cafecito con la Directora. We also encourage a lot of parents to volunteer in the classrooms and on field trips. So we actively try to get as many parents cleared as possible through the process. We do a bi-weekly raccoon reporter in both Spanish and English. So through a suggestion of one of our board members, I've actually split it. It used to all be in one, but it's actually now in 2 separate newsletters with links to them both. One of the really exciting things we have this year is we do have an ELAC. We've struggled to actually create an ELAC in previous years. And thanks to the work of Dr. Laney and Ms. Veronica, we've actually had an ELAC this year, which is really amazing to have those voices being heard as well. We have a school site council that meets monthly, like all of our other schools. And tomorrow I'm really excited to actually say we've got our first parent workshop. This is going to be run through our mental health counselors. We heard from parents in terms of what they wanted to hear about. So we're going to really be working on that to increase that offering next year as well, along with PTA, room parents, and so forth as well. Oh, I do want to add, actually, our family center does actually do a survey to our families they work with, and they also make welcome calls to every one of our new families when they actually enter Roosevelt. So I want to add that too.
The last slide is the community school update, and I wanted to highlight the 4 pillars of community school. So we have collaborative leadership practices. 2 years ago, Roosevelt became a community school. So we have been really working hard to bring in everybody at the table. So everybody's perspectives and opinions and working together to really support the students and the families. We have shared leadership practices. This year, we have the biggest group of teachers on the PBS committee. We have leadership teams. We all share the roles and co-facilitate and take turns and support each other. We're working with SF. 3 of us have coaches, and we also meet with our leadership team 2 hours monthly with them to go over some agenda items and really work on equity lens focused work with families and students. We have integrated student services in partnership with the mental health. We work very closely. We meet weekly to discuss families and strategize how we could support our students inside the classroom and at home. We collect data and we look at the students that we're serving and what other students that we could serve within the school year. We have active family engagement. We have a full-time admin secretary that focuses on calling families, getting to know students, building relationships with students, parents, and teachers. We have a lot of students this year that are self-referring for safety net services, food from Second Harvest and Costco. We send home weekly bags through our parent service, but also students can self-refer. We have tables that we set up today to have the kids fill out an iPad and fill out referrals for them for services during lunchtime. So we want to make sure that we're accessible to them. We have a great extended learning time and opportunity. REACH has provided excellent services to our students. They've exposed them to marine science, skateboarding, cooking, robotics, art, piano. Our PTA in collaboration has coordinated with us Zumba, Lego, and ballet. We look forward to what's going to happen next year. Thank you.
Before I have the concluding comments, I do actually want to just first of all shout out. I know we have a lot of parents on the meeting tonight, and we have a lot of staff who are on the meeting tonight. So I want to just thank them all for being a part of this as well, because this is not our achievements, it's our achievements as a whole community. So I want to thank everybody who is actually part of this. So in terms of what more do we need from the board or the district office, we really wanted to ask for continued funding for CAP, College Advisory Prep. That has just been a really phenomenal success, and our students are providing voice to some of that as well, and just saying how successful they're feeling through that is really important. We have a part-time behaviorist who works with certain students and focal classrooms, and that's been really successful. We would love to see that program continue. We'd love some additional funding for yard duty. This year we provide some of that out of site funds, but we've also had a campus supervisor. We're not going to have a campus supervisor next year, so we're just asking for that piece as well. Full staffing for our special ed department. We have actually been we've had an amazing job. Actually, that's part of what Wendy's been working on for half of her job recently. But we've been down 2 RSP teachers for most of the year. And so it's been a challenge, but we've actually successfully made sure we're hitting our timelines. Our students are all getting their services thanks to some guest teachers. So thank you, Wendy. But yeah, so full staffing for actually people all year would be really important for us. For those of you who don't know, we're about 22% of students at Roosevelt, excluding preschool, actually receive special ed services of some kind. So we have a very large percentage. So it's really important that we do have full staffing in that area. We're looking for restorative justice PD for all of our staff. I said we only had some focal staff that received it this year, but I think it's really important in terms of creating that piece. The restorative piece is just so important to prevent future behaviors. One of the big requests, when the district right-sized, a number of schools closed, one of those being Hawes. So we picked up a lot of the students who are in the Hawes boundary. And we find when there's things like inclement weather, which this year we had way more of than previous years, a lot of our students who live east of Hudson Street, it's a long walk for them. So we have kids who are like all the way down at El Camino having to walk. It's about a mile and a half to Roosevelt, and that can be very challenging. So it's one of the requests we have. So if there's any way we could get transportation for any kids who live east of Hudson, that'd be amazing. And then just consideration for an ELD teacher. So somebody could work with some students. Some of our teachers are saying they would actually like to have a little bit of pull-out support as well, and even pushing into their classrooms and supporting students in that way. Okay, so thank you very much for your time.
That's great.
Okay.
Katie, can I ask one question for you? On the concluding comments, if you were to pick 2, there's a lot here. There's a lot here, and every school asks, what would it be?
I am going to say continued funding for math tutoring is absolutely critical. That's a tough one. Thoughts? I would actually probably say we're getting there with SPED department, so I'm going to leave that one off. Although that would actually definitely be number one if
I think
nothing
that's
else.
district-wide.
Yes.
District-wide.
Yes, so that, I'm gonna leave that one off for now. I'm gonna say restorative justice PD for all of our staff.
Got it. Okay.
So, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Great, thank you again for the presentation. And then just because we've done this in the past with the other school presentations, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it for my colleagues to go ahead and ask any questions.
I think Dr. Baker asked the hard question. So that was good. No, thanks, Tina, Shanna, Felicia, Veronica, and Wendy for coming here and presenting. I'm glad that you have staff and parents online too. I didn't look at the participant list, but that's neat. Loved hearing about Roosevelt. Working backwards, I'm really glad, and maybe this goes to, I don't know who is involved in getting the expanded community schools, that program out there. That we have more sites at the district that are doing it. So I love hearing that part of the report. I'm really glad that Roosevelt's one of them. I think there was a real need, particularly with the right sizing. And it's just really neat to hear how that program is blossoming. Obviously it was blossoming and how it's just embedding itself in your school over the last couple of years and will continue to grow there. So that was a lot of fun. Hearing mental health counselor, we hear it from every school, but hearing you say they're vital, it's just a really strong reminder. So much of that's been funded through COVID dollars. And I know that we're going to have to look at how we can make sure that that continues because it's just proved to be a real critical part of educating a whole child. And we knew it before the pandemic, but the pandemic's really, brought it to light there. So that was neat. Parent attendance night, that was a fun story. Thank you. That was really cool to hear about it. And just like how, hey, let's try it. And to see that the way that worked and it turns into something quarterly, maybe not everything that we say, hey, let's try it is going to end up that way, but it's nice to be able to do that. Hey, let's try it and have that kind of outcome. And it sounds like, with 51% growth, one level growth on the LPAC for our emerging multilingual students, it sounds like there's good growth there. It sounds like many of the strategies that are working, particularly around CAP, which you called out at the end. And by the way, I don't know who did the figured that out in the budget to expand the program that we approved a couple board meetings ago. But I love that reinforcement of, okay, we're expanding this program and then we're hearing it back at the SIPSs of how valuable it is and how much of a difference it's making. So that was really, really important. But also the literacy support and intervention. It sounds like they're effective. Let's do more, right? So that was neat that was actually your number one pick off of the recommended sides there. So it's a good reminder for us as we're looking at ultimately everything's a trade-off, right? So as we're looking at trade-offs and where those things are, making sure that we can continue to fund this thing. So thanks for coming and presenting. I enjoyed hearing about Roosevelt. Thanks.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions, but I wanted to say thank you very much for the presentation. It's always nice to have Roosevelt in the house, and of course Clifford's also in the house, but we love having hearing from our schools and our staff. So thank you. I totally agree with everything that Mike said, so I won't repeat all of it, but some things that I really appreciate about Roosevelt and things that you called out is how community oriented you are. And that you're really working with your parents and your families. I mean, you listed all sorts of things that you're doing that are working, right? And I really appreciate that you're continually thinking about what more can we add, the parent workshops and all of that. So, and we know how important it is to have that continuation of learning and that connection at home. So thank you. I mean, it's super important. And I also really appreciate the work that you're doing with professional development of your staff, particularly around the literacy and the math, and really thinking about what more can we do for students to really get them reading, get them doing the math, which of course we know then helps with all the other things, right? So, so thank you for all of that. And then I did want to say, I really appreciate the list. All of the school sites have been very thoughtful about what they're asking the board to think about. And of course, we're not going to be able to do everything, but there's some themes there. And I think even as an example with transportation, later tonight, we're hearing from the transportation plan, and it got me thinking that,
if there are a few students, we may be running some buses down there anyway. So that's the kind of thing we need to know about, right? So maybe we can connect up and, we could talk about that for next year because we are adding some additional transportation. So it might be that we could add some additional bus stops. Who knows? I don't know exactly, but I'm glad again that you just, you're bringing up these things because of course, for me, the most important thing is getting kids to school. Because if they're not at school, they're not learning, right? So that's where it goes to suspensions, it goes to chronic absenteeism. Really appreciate all the work you're doing there because we know the other will come, right? The other will come if we can get them at school, if we're having that home connection with their family and we're doing the professional development and we're getting the curriculum with our kids. I mean, it's all, it's all part of the package. So anyway, thank you very much. Really loved hearing from you. And I did also want to give a shout out to all the people that are joining us virtually. I see a lot of the names of parents and family members and staff members. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate the presentation and all of the work behind it, not just from you presenters, but the teachers and the staff and the parents who are all involved in this educational process. I really love the story about the parent night activity. Getting parents involved in supporting students actively is really high impact. And so I would love to see at kickoff time for the next school year for there to be student-driven plans for their own achievement. So it seems like there's been success with the behavior contracts as an intervention, but the hope would be that every student could go and help build themselves a learning plan with the support of their parent and support of their teacher. So I'd love to see that. Love the ask for whole school professional development for restorative justice. We've seen in a bunch of the other schools that does have very high impact on not just suspensions, but also referrals. Would love to see some of the numbers around referrals because it looks like they're going, it was narrated to be going down into the right. I'm a numbers guy. I love seeing numbers. That makes me really happy that it's not just that you're taking problems and keeping them in the classroom, but you're actually resolving the root of the problem. And so that's really wonderful to see. In terms of math, tutoring has been shown to be very high impact. There's the Bloom's paper, the 2 sigma problem. So I think, more tutoring makes perfect sense to me. There's obviously a big gap between where the students are at in their math level and where they need to be and where they deserve to be. And so I think that we should definitely look at how we can provide some dollars for that, but also I think we should explore some supplementary approaches, including perhaps student peer tutoring, which has also been shown to be pretty effective. You don't really understand something until you teach it, which of course you don't need to tell teachers that. I'm also very excited about the new math curriculum that's going to be rolling out. So I got my fingers crossed for that, and I hope that we can do something similar for English curriculum as well for literacy. So thank you so much for your presentation. I really appreciate all of your hard work.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you very much for your presentation for everybody that is here tonight and also online. I see a lot of families and teachers and staff from Roosevelt online too. So a lot of ditto. I don't want to repeat everything. One thing, let's see, where do I want to start? I guess let's start with the iReady scores. Thank you for presenting also the current scores too. We do see growth in all of the categories. Unfortunately, only one category met their target, which I think highlights the inequity that we see, not just at Roosevelt, it's in our district everywhere. So there's work to do. And I think we all know that. But I appreciate seeing or hearing that there is growth in all of the categories too. I think that's really important. I think the special ed students were off by 1% for their target. So I was, they're almost there. Let's see, there was a quote in the student voice slide. I don't know if people caught it, but one of the students said they want to hear more about the different mental illnesses and that it's normal, which I just think is incredibly mature even for a middle schooler. So I just, not just this particular student, but like this generation, kudos to them because we're hearing them talk about it more. And I think it's really important that we hear that voice and we remind them, yeah, it is normal. Here are the different mental illnesses. Here's how we can help you. Here's how you can help your friends. So it just, that was amazing to see that student point that out. On the transportation piece, Dr. Baker, didn't we have transportation? Did that end?
I think that's the question I was gonna ask Tina when she came to me. Let me ask you this. So we agreed that the kids, they would get it from Hawes, you know, so it's the problem from this is what I'm thinking. It's a problem because they're way down there by El Camino.
Yes.
So because we said we pick up at the school site.
That's what I'm wondering, can we just have the bus?
But can I also just tell you that that was for the displaced students? So we're now, the
Okay,
displaced students
okay.
are getting very close to
We
graduating out.
switched the boundaries.
So how many students right now are in fourth grade up who are receiving those services? So obviously, as they graduate out, which is gonna be very soon, I think next year.
If they were, let me state this, if it were not the displaced students, would there still be that problem of getting to Hawes? Because that's what we had explained all along. If you're going to,
I think it's the new people, it's the new students in that neighborhood now that were not originally displaced, but they would have gone to Hawes, but now they're being, you know.
so that's my question,
Yeah.
because we always said, we're not picking up on the streets, we're picking up at a school site. That's what we agreed to. So would it still be a problem if they were to be picked up at Hawes?
Be far less of a problem. It's still quite, I mean, we have a lot of families who live very close to El Camino. Our boundary really does stretch a long way there. And we do notice significant absences on days when we have rain or very high wind. And I said, this was a very unusual year because we had a lot of them. But yes, we actually saw a lot of absences or a lot of even tardies. So because a lot of parents don't necessarily have cars or they rely on the students walking, or they go to work early, so they rely on that kind of piece. So it would definitely alleviate some of it.
Because I know when we talked about this, this was years ago when they closed, I know especially at one of our schools, we were trying to get the transportation from one site to another site, and then we couldn't do it. And then we were trying to get it on a street, and we were having problems with the city. That I know Linda was helping me with it, and Martin also. So we can see what we can do. There's only certain places where we can pick up in the city itself. So
because Samtrans does not have a public drop off anywhere near us. Like it's either over there on Jefferson or it's way further down on Alameda. So
it doesn't. That's right.
Just curious, maybe for a separate subcommittee thing, like how creative we can get in terms of like bikes, scooters, et cetera. Just in terms of what options are on the table, might be interesting to explore, but because I mean, it's 1.6 miles from the school to El Camino. So we're not talking about like 5-6 miles. So.
Yeah, I think the issue is the inclement weather days,
Yep.
right? So to ride a bike or a scooter in the rain is a lot to ask. I mean, they do it in Europe, they do it in Portland, but they don't do it around here. Anyway, I mean, no, I think your point is taken for like.
And we do have climate best by government test. It's on the side, except for this one.
there aren't bike paths though either. Let me just make that clear. There's no bike paths.
No, that road is not a safe street to.
And I think one thing that we need to keep in mind is that not all parents will allow their kids to walk and bike to school. So, or, you know, or with the
It's just-
scooters.
It was less trying to be prescriptive about a particular solution, more just
Yeah.
asking like what's on under our big tent of options is the only thing school buses. So I don't know.
I think actually Martin is here because he's doing the transportation plan, so I'm sure he heard you. I'll be talking to you.
All right.
Options.
Great. Again, thank you very much, all 5 of you. And like David said, and everyone here, to everyone online, obviously teachers and classified staff that help our students on a daily basis. So thank you. I don't really have any questions. I guess I do. Under tier 1, the calming corners, can you just explain that a little bit to
Absolutely.
me, please?
Yeah. Would you like me to, or Beto, would you like to?
I can chime in.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the focus is we want students to stay in the classroom and not be sent to the office or go to mental health services. If they could stay in the classroom and help self-regulate, there's some things in there that they could still stay in the classroom and still be engaged with the teacher. So maybe they need to stand up or take a break. They could sit in the calming corner and still participate in big group activities or individual activities. So we really, Tina and I and PBIS committee and leadership really looked at where we wanted to use some funds and really got inputs of students, what they needed to help self-regulate in the classroom. Obviously, they could still have check-ins, but we want to make sure that they could stay in the classroom as long as they can, and teachers are able to help support that.
So are they just able to walk to the corner? I mean, is that something, or how does that work? I guess that's what I'm trying to
It works for
understand.
different teachers. So like in middle school, they may be able to sit in different areas and do work in different areas. Maybe in the classroom, if they're teaching, they put their hand up. Some teachers have like sticks, or the student has an idea, like I need to go there for 5 minutes, and they sign up and they go there and they have a little timer, which the kids could set their own little timers. So the classrooms have timers, and then they can get out or say they need another service. So it depends what the teacher has agreed for their classroom.
Perfect.
And we have one in the mental health room. We have one in the family center. And so we also are doing that in the REACH in the after school program. So the students that needed to be helped self-regulate in the after school program, they have a common corner in there.
Perfect. Thank you. And then the other thing with the panorama, obviously, I really appreciated seeing that all kids 3rd through 5th and the middle schoolers had the school belonging, sense of school belonging. So that's really great. Obviously, seeing less referrals of what's working, and with the absenteeism, of course, the parent attendance night, like everyone said, I think that's great. The strategies that you guys are using for the ELs, I appreciate that as well. And then one thing that just was emphasized by Whitney, right? Yes, Wendy. It's the exceptional ability students. So rather than referring them to like special ed students. So I think that was great, to actually use.
Felicia.
Okay, Felicia. Okay, I'm sorry. And so again, no really any questions. The book club, is this optional, or is this something that every student and every classroom participates in?
It was actually for every teacher. So we had every teacher and all administrators. We selected about 5 books specifically focused on literacy. And so we gave up one staff meeting a month so that people would join a book club. So they would choose which of those books they wanted to be in groups of about 3-4 staff members. So it was a very intimate kind of book club, really deciding we're going to read these 2 chapters and then we're going to talk about them. And it's been really beneficial in terms of putting that focus on literacy. So the teachers are then rethinking their practices in terms of what might work in the classroom too.
Okay, great. Thank you. And that's it for me. So thank you again for the presentation, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
So Tina, with your staff that you have here with you, and this is the staff that is your right, left hand.
Yes.
That's great to see. I remember we didn't have that a while back.
No,
so it's
been
really-
wonderful.
It's great.
Wonderful.
And fantastic teachers. Then I see that there are some online.
Yeah.
Wendy, I think this would be great if one day we could have her come to a site administrator meeting and talk about the parent attendance night, or you could talk about it, Tina.
Yeah.
But what a great strategy. Where did you pick that up from?
I just came to me because I knew that part of my responsibility as MTSS COSA was not, I wasn't fulfilling it, and it was kind of weighing on me as more and more teachers are expressing concerns as I'm looking at the list grow and,
Right.
receiving messages everywhere, not really connecting with parents. And so I just went to Tina and I said, hey, like how.
Can I stop you just for a second?
Come in the microphone. There you go.
So I went to Tina and I asked her like, how feasible is it to do this? Like, do we need to go to the school board and get approval, or can we just do it? And she said, just give me a date and, we'll figure it out. I gave her a date, and I had a teacher stay after with me. We started right when REACH let out, the after school program let out. And Miss Laney was there to support me. And it was cool. We just pulled down a cafeteria table and parents came in and sat down and just like really opened up and talked. We had parents crying and telling us what was going on in their lives and why they couldn't get their kids to school. A lot of questions. We had a few SST self-referrals. It was really super informative. And the amount of phone calls, I think, was what was really surprising me, and the emails more so than parents coming out in a storm. It was probably equal numbers of phone calls and emails as people that attended the parents' night, because they really wanted to be conscientious that I had sent this letter and that they needed to be there and they couldn't. Oh, no, we were closer, but in total, closer to 70.
My gosh.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be great to share that with the other
Absolutely.
administrators. I really think so. So we may be tapping into.
Okay.
Thank you. Tina, great job. I mean, in the amount of time you've been there, it's changed. Roosevelt has changed for the better.
Yeah.
And we are moving in the right direction. And for your colleagues that are standing next to you and supporting you, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And the teachers, the parents, the paraprofessionals that are working at Roosevelt, you're all working together as a team and it's greatly appreciated, let me tell you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep it up, keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
You don't have to stick around. Oh, they're gonna support. Great. Thank you. Oh, that's great. You're gonna support Clifford. Yes, come on up.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Baker, cabinet members, and community. My name is Jude Noyes, and I'm the principal of Clifford School. And with me tonight, I have my strong leadership team. I have Tiffany Parrish as the assistant principal of Clifford School. And I have Stacy Chilton, the multi-role serve person at our school. But she is currently our literacy specialist and is going to be our full-time MTSS coordinator next year, which we're really glad to have her. So they'll be presenting with us tonight. All right, so this is the overview of our presentation. And our first goal focuses on suspension and chronic absenteeism and working through the MTSS framework to increase our goals in this area, our data points. So what we recognize is the need as we shift as a school and as we are growing and adjusting as a community, because our demographics are shifting. We are, on the horizon for a community school. We're looking at 48% unduplicated student populations. We are shifting and changing community. We are recognizing as our needs are growing, we also are needing to shift as our community shifts. And one of those things is our strong dependence on needing a restorative justice framework, which helps build community between students and staff, between students and students, and really providing that opportunity for teachers and other staff like paraprofessionals to get training and coaching around the restorative justice framework. And so we moved from that in one of our tier 1 strategies of having our mental health counselor, who's, like everybody else is saying, is vital to our school. She is a dynamic presence and in the front of the school in the morning, greeting students, being available to parents right when they arrive, having our NUA engagement strategies for student. We've had a Unity Day to hopefully improve students, having opportunities to just have discussions with each other, to solve problems together, to, like when we have kids who are arguing, we're able to bring them back together as a community of 2 people who are part of a bigger picture of our community, which is part of that too. We have Project Cornerstone. We're working with Changing Perspective workshops for teachers and staff. So they've come in, they've modeled, they've co-taught things together in the classrooms to build empathy. We have character awards. Also for our tier 1, we've implemented a middle school dolphin cove. It's a lovely setting with soft lighting, couch, fidgets for kids with anxiety or having some emotional dysregulation. So that's really wonderful for our students. And it's up in the middle school, which we know we needed a strong presence in when we're growing as a community and building our community in a stronger effort towards meeting these targets. We have academic award assemblies and for a middle school and elementary. Buddy classrooms as part of our tier 2 strategies, and our mental health counselor from, for our full-time mental health counselor from Redwood City and our One Life counselor are also doing active social groups together. So that's been really important, the important strategies for tier 1. Oh, it's okay. That's fine. And our tier, and so our tier 3 would be the social groups. So post-pandemic, from the years that I've been there, so this is my 9th year there, I've really recognized a strong need to shift how we dealt with behavior and consequences and moving from a punitive lens to a restorative lens. And I've seen that children are able to, when you give them voice and space, to solve problems together and empowers them as individuals, which then makes them have opportunities for more access to education, more access to the classroom, more access to learning, instead of, sending them away. It's, I don't want a punitive model. I don't want compliance demanding on students. I want them to have a voice, to seek justice in the appropriate ways, to elevate their voice, to get their needs met. So that's something that I noticed we needed a shift in how we respond to conflict between students. And then also when teachers are seeing, things escalating in their classroom, an opportunity for them to be empowered to know how to manage those things within the classroom. So using that restorative justice framework for them as well. So their opportunity for them to have someone model, with them in the classroom, to them practice and get feedback. So that has really been really helpful for our school. And then the Dolphin Cove, obviously. We have had restorative conversations with admins. So we have groups of kids sit with us in the Dolphin Cove, which is a setting up in their world, which is our upstairs middle school. We have a downstairs elementary and upstairs middle. And so we call it upstairs. So when we're up there, we're in their world. And they need to have a space where they can voice their concerns, where they can talk things out, where they can go and they need to just check out for a minute. And we all kind of need that. So we wanted to make sure that they have that space so they don't feel that they need to engage in things to escape from school. Like some kids don't want to do the math test, and so they get sent to the office, those kinds of things. So that's really helped. A middle school centric Dolphin Depot. So we have 2 student stores. We have an elementary student store and a middle school student store. And that has really helped the students buy into our culture of being respectful, showing character, having empathy. And so they get dolphin tickets and they redeem these in the elementary store for the littles, and they have, their age level prizes. And then our middle school Dolphin Depot is their own, and they run it and they pick the inventory. And it is huge success. So when it's warm out, they get popsicles. When it's cold out, they've had hot chocolate, so they're really excited about those things, and having a voice and running the store for some of them is serious business. They own that store, and which is fun to watch. And it's fun to see them work as a little community together, and sharing ideas. So that's been something that's been wonderful. And the other things that we're doing that I think are really helping is having the classroom restorative circles going, and then also working with changing perspectives and having small student groups working with Sam Drazen and just allowing the students to just vent and share. So that's how we're adjusting to moving away from punitive suspensions to reducing those suspensions in primarily our middle school. And we've seen a definite decline in that. So it says here, so how do we know? There's been a sharp decrease from discipline incidents overall, but especially in our middle school grades. Last year in February, there were 30 discipline incidents entered into Power School for grades 6 through 8. This year, there were 5 by that time. So huge change. And I love watching students engage in dialogue around solving problems together, because they are our future, and we want them to have strong voices where they get heard and make changes without being shut down. So that's really important to teach that skill to our students. Some of the things that I think might not be working. Our Dolphin Cove is a great space for the students. I said that already, to decompress. But it's not been available ongoing, because we are pulled, Tiffany and I, often all over the school. And so we're not always in there. But when we are in there, there's way less issues going on, like in the yard, in the halls, because we're able to see it right in the moment. We see kids starting to amp up, and we're like, hey guys, what's going on? And they're like, oh, hey, so being present has really helped. But so you get the next slide, we'll kind of talk about that next slide. So we're considering changing, having our MTSS TOSA, Stacy, permanently up there as her office space. Because this year she has been working as a quasi MTSS coordinator. making connections with students, strong connections with our families. She's bilingual, so she's been able to really reach our target population on building that community, pulling them into our school, and really making those connections. So having Stacy up there full time in her office, and we'll be there as much as we can, will be a reliable resource for kids. We want to be as resource rich as possible for them. We're also going to use Yonder, which is a phone pouch where students will have their phones in a pouch. And I kind of put it out there to a few people in the community about this idea, and some felt, and these were non-educators, that it was punitive, and whatnot. Others thought it was a great idea. But at the end of the day, I have a strong intention around instructional time, how being that priority of importance. And so I feel like phones are very, kids are distracted by them so easily, just even their thoughts. And I understand that, and it makes sense. However, when they're with us, I need them to be with us, and I need them to be present. And so protecting that instructional time. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be changing, because kids with their phones are pretty creative. And it's hard to compete with them in this classroom with the phone in their hand. So hope that will help bring more presence in front, and not using phones to film fights, and not using phones to, text mean things to each other. We had a unity day at our school, a whole day, where we had our 7th and 8th graders together in a whole day activity where they learn to identify feelings that they're struggling with, have perspective about others and sort of their experiences in life, and recognize that other students might not have all of the amazing things that they do in their life. And so building empathy for them. And the intentionality was amazing on how everybody in the MUB was so present in helping our kids work together and communicate and connect, and kids that you don't normally see together really listening to one another. And it really made me realize that we need this at the beginning of the year. So that's something that we're going to be changing, having a unity day in the beginning of the year and a unity day in the middle of the year. So one will be community building, connecting, and the one in the middle of the year will be conflict management, solving difficult issues. Because as middle school, the months go, they start to spike in January, March, April, May with behaviors. And so I thought that time, doing it 2 times a year, would have 2 critical impacts. So some of the quotes from Unity Day you can see here. The prompt was 3 things I learned at Unity Day. And some of them are: respect everyone, don't judge a book by its cover, we all have differences, you never know what someone else is dealing with, and so on and so forth. So they're really recognizing that the people that they see every day and maybe tease or don't know are people just like them. And so building that relational trust with each other was really important. So one of the things that I recognize as our community is growing and changing is the need to have more resources and be resource rich, so that our families have another communication line into our school. And that's hiring a family liaison to support our multilingual families. And this would work in concert with our MTSS coordinator. Well, Stacy will partner with, really being someone that families feel safe to talk to and can help remove barriers to their student success around attendance, around what's happening in their community and their family that's making, life harder for them, poverty, homelessness, and just provide a resource for we have a lot of newcomers, for our newcomer families. That's something that we're changing. So one of the things that we recognize is that there was a COVID issues with attendance at one point, and to the point where we had to, get back to business, so to speak, and ensure that our students were engaged in school and coming to school. And so one of the strategies that we are working on this year is establishing relationships with students and building community. That was one of our big focuses this year. Newsletters to families highlighting attendance is important. I'm giving award certificates to students, the dolphin tickets. We have a school-wide attendance matters contest coming. They're going to design a logo on a banner. We're doing community circles. Just so kids can share ideas with each other. I learned from Tina about the about the attendance night that I'm going to steal. I think it's wonderful. And so I think like learning from each other, being collaborative, being partners is something that I think is really important. And our tier 2 is our MTSS TOSA will be a context to connect to support families around attendance, more outreach from the liaison, emails, phone calls. And then tier 3, we started this year as we've been doing attendance SSTs, where it's not just academic, but it's like, let's all meet together as a team and let's talk about what you're struggling with around getting to school and how can we help remove those barriers so you can access academics and home visits. So community building, really doing a lot of community outreach, phone calls, home visits, impromptu meetings out in the front of the school. I know Stacy's done that several times. We had a family who needed a car seat. They drove up and they didn't have one and they had an infant. And so we were able to pull together a car seat that very day with the help of our PTO and Stacy and making that happen for that family. So that's really helping. Our attendance data for students that have been targeted for SST meetings have had a demonstrated improvement. So we've had improved attendance for those specific targeted students. What doesn't seem to be working is that it's difficult to have regular communication because we really need to find an immediate response when we are doing our weekly attendance. Our teachers need weekly attendance sheets to monitor. We need a ready system. So we're hoping that with Stacy's work, she'll be able to develop a really good attendance monitoring system at our site to start to address it before it becomes chronic. And some of the things we're considering changing is we will hope to hire a bilingual family liaison, create early warning systems to consistently monitor and respond by the family liaison, do some home visits, immediate outreach to families concerning attendance, referrals made, and to address attendance concerns. Like the point of that to me is really to identify what are the barriers, assure them that our school is a safe place to be, and that we want them there as partners, and that we're not judgmental. We're not judging families, and we're not scary, because I think sometimes people hide because they're afraid of being in trouble, but we really just want them to come to school, and we'll do what we can to help them be there. So I'm going to put this over to Tiffany for ELT.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to present. And I'm very excited about goal 2. I mean, I'm excited about all our goals, but goal 2 is a little bit special to my heart. So in looking at reclassification for multilingual students over 5 years, one of the trends we notice as we're looking, we know that students who are continuing to really master their academic English sometimes get stuck as they go into middle school. And that's certainly a trend that we noticed as we were looking at our reclassification rates. And, just anecdotally, I think coming out of the pandemic, we noticed that our families who had a difficult time with access to online school or access to the space to be able to do it at home, that created a pattern that was really difficult for us to break into. And it carried into, LPAC testing for those couple of years. That was really tough. So we knew that this was something we really had to focus on, and we needed to focus on it in a school to family connection sort of way. And, Tina spoke about this at Roosevelt. ELAC historically at Clifford has been really difficult to gather steam around. It's been very hard. So this year was like, okay, this is a focus of ours. We're really going to work to build up a robust ELAC. You can go to the next screen, Liz. So, along with our strong tier 1 instruction, our teachers have been just absolutely amazing in their adoption and their use and their really mastering NUA strategies, which help all of our students. It particularly targets our multilingual students really well. It provides them that access point they need. and gives them their student voice in that process. So our teachers are doing an amazing job at that tier 1 instruction. One of the ways that we wanted to step up from a leadership standpoint was that ELAC piece. So this year, I am really happy to report that due to some hard work from our whole team and along with some parents, some strategic parent partnerships, we've gotten this ELAC off the ground. So that's been really, I mean, for us, tier 1, like having that strong family school connection has been really amazing. And it's allowed us opportunities to build agendas and ELAC meetings around what our families really want to know about. And a lot of that is around reclassification. What does the LPAC test look like? Things like that. And so Leslie Daniele's been a great partner in that way. She's come and presented to our ELAC, and we have somebody that we're sending to the DLAC as a representative. So it's been really exciting. So in addition to that, you know, our staff development department has been amazing. Laura and Mariella have done a lot to really come out and work with our teachers on the integrated units. So one of the things that we've noticed, we've got these lovely tier 1 instructions, you know, we've got these things down really, really well. In looking at our tier 2 and tier 3, we found that there were some pockets that we can kind of come in and make some adjustments. So we have designated ELD instruction without losing an elective period, because that one's, you know, we want to make sure that kids have access to their electives. That's important. We've had TK5 staff meetings devoted to ELD instruction, but some of the areas that we can improve that we noticed is our middle school kiddos, they need that extra support. So we were like, how can we look at this from a systematic point of view? So we're going to rebuild our schedule next year to build in an advisory period that provides us some flexibility. So we can build in some extra support for ELD instruction during that time period. So kids, again, are not missing an elective period. They're not missing out on something fun, and they're participating in a period that all the other students will be participating in as well, meeting the needs of everyone kind of where they're at. But it'll provide us that flexibility that we need. So we're excited about that. Yeah, thanks, Liz. All right, so what continues, you know, what's working, that consistent designated ELD instruction. We're doing walkthroughs to monitor those things. Our ELAC meetings have been pivotal this year. I mean, they've really been, it's changed our practice in our relationships with families, in their buy-in, their engagement in this process with their students. We've done a lot to engage them in what they want to learn, and then delivered that, you know, partnered with the right people to get them what they want to know about, give them access to technology for our younger students at home. So they've signed permission slips to be able to use those things to practice for the LPAC test at home. So that's been working really, really well. Our attendance at those meetings has been consistent, and it's developed new relationships with these families that have created that partnership that we've really needed to create with our families. It's been really powerful. Again, we need to restructure our schedules, particularly in middle school, to accommodate that advisory period, to really hone in on some more powerful designated ELD instruction. So that's what we're going to be doing next year, changing that up. Thank you so much. I'll hand it over to Stacy.
So just to kind of tie what Jude and Tiffany have shared with what I'm about to share, Clifford is definitely growing and changing for the better. Multilingual learners make up about 25% of our population now. And of that 25%, 28% of those are newcomers. So besides the multilingual learner supports that Tiffany spoke about, we're building on the strengths and meeting the needs of all of our students, including those learners. So just as our school is growing in a positive way, our iReady and CASP data is also showing some positive growth. So for iReady, we broke it down by grade level. So the data for overall change between the iReady data from fall to winter to our most recent is actually on a different slide, but I can share that for iReady reading overall, we went up to 54% at or above grade level. And then on the math side of things, we went up to 50% at or above grade level. So we're happy to see that growth in the right direction. The next slide is our CASP numbers. And again, we broke that down by grade level. And we don't have that data for this year yet. As far as what strategies we're using, a lot of it is around building teacher capacity. We are very grateful to have a staff that's very open to learning and continuous learning. So strengthening our tier 1 and tier 2 instruction through NUA, through many other methods, targeted small group instruction based on very specific domain-specific iReady data, using flexible grouping and continuous gathering, interpreting, and using of data to drive instruction. When we get to tier 3, we still use that very specific data to target instruction to what our students need, especially because we have such a changing population. We're finding that using that data is really helping us target where the gaps are and what the students need as far as math and reading instruction. And again, the ongoing data analysis and monitoring, progress monitoring going forward. The next slide shows kind of how we know. So there's our data. What we're considering changing, we've already started changing. I've been lucky enough to be part of the California Reading and Literacy Project training that we're doing. And so we're using more specific reading assessments to kind of really pin down what the students need and where they're at. And that's helped teachers drive instruction and also helped us meet the needs of the students. And then we're looking at tier 1 K-2 instruction next year to include explicit whole class phonics and foundational skills instruction. So we are already thinking forward about that and hoping that that continues, the trend continues to show improvement for us.
So I just first want to say thank you to my families who are overly generous, loving, kind, and welcoming, and always available for our school whenever I call them. They're just an amazing dynamic group of parents, and they're partners with us intentionally and literally. And we really appreciate them. So I just want to say thank you to our parent community. So some of the amazing things that our parent community and our staff have participated in is some of these amazing school events. And one of the big ones we had, it was new this year, is the clothing swap. So recognizing that there's a need for some people in our community for access to new jackets, to clothing, to socks, to all kinds of things, all kinds of sizes, even grownups. So that was a super successful event. We have the Marine Science Institute where they come to school and the students actually get to pet sea life. It's super fun. It's a hit. We have our auction. We have a move-a-thon coming up on the 28th of April. We have several assemblies. We did a field trip for our 8th graders to Alcatraz, thanks to Tiffany. She took the whole crew over the water to Alcatraz and they had a blast. Our 7th and 8th graders went to was it 6th grade? I think it was 6th grade. 7th and 8th graders went to California Academy of Sciences. So we first only were doing one grade level, and then the other grade level was like, we want to go too. And so we made that happen, and they had a wonderful time. We have a school play that we do every year. We have field day coming up in May. We do a Halloween parade and carnival. Students build a haunted house in our middle school hallway. It's super fun. We had Unity Day. We have Inclusion Week. We have the book fair. One of a big haul was our garden beautification. We had a dying, as you can see in some of these earlier, a very sad landscape of dying vegetation. But it was screaming like, do something with us, right? And I want students to take part of it. I want our family to have a space where we can like grow things and do fun community things together. And it was wonderful. It was a Saturday. We have a parent who's leading it. He's going to volunteer working with the classrooms on teaching sustainability and composting. They repainted the shed. It's fantastic. So that was a big one. We had an anti-bullying day. We did Ruby Ridge's Walk to School. We were a certified kindness school. We had Inclusive Schools Week. We have Project Cornerstone, K-8, move-a-thons and read-a-thons. Just some of our amazing community events. Student voice. So you can see here, students engaged in several collaborative activities. We have a GSA. And a quote here from a student says, GSA is a place where I can express all my feelings, have fun, and not be judged. And we have our GSA group right there, in that big right there. And we have a middle school e-zine, which is a magazine. And these students are absolutely amazing creative writers. I am floored when I read them. One of our ELA teacher leads this magazine and has students throughout the year at different, I think it's monthly, just create a magazine full of creative stories. And I share that with my community. It's anonymous, but when I read it, I think I'm reading like a really great short story. So that's really impressive. We also had a student ELAC, not ELAC, a student LCAP committee. And this is these three photos over here, where instantaneously those students got together as groups and collaborated, and some of them didn't even really know each other. They're all different grades. We gave them sort of the vision and the task, and they went at it. They're instantaneously accessing and engaging and being active. They came up with wonderful ideas. And one of our students who a few years ago was someone who was a newcomer, really struggled with catching up and kind of being, confident in himself. He was up there slapping post-it after post-it. And I was just like, you're amazing. But their ideas were so deep and rich and meaningful. And it was just joyful to see. And then here on the right, we have our Unity Day, where we had student leaders, working with student groups. So that we had student leaders working with the other students. And so they're leading the beginning of the assembly and creating the norms for it. That's it. Those pictures. I have a biweekly family newsletter that we send out. We have our monthly site council. We have a monthly PTO. We have a monthly ELAC, thanks to Tiffany and her team. We do a Maze Day like everybody else. We have a TK in kindergarten. We have Art in Action, where our parents lead art in the classrooms. They're volunteer docents. They have to make themselves schedules to have classroom helpers. We have tons of parents helping. Their parents are always available to chaperone, which is great. We have Healthy Cities tutoring, conferences. And one of the things that we're going to be changing this year is we are going to do a July, August early assessments with kinders and create goals, parent, student, teacher goals at the beginning of the year for kindergarten. So that's coming up this year. And our PTO has a Facebook page. And here you can see some of our pictures of our auction, our play, which was Little Mermaid, and they really do a very good job. Kinder play date, clothing swap, clothing pop-up, pictures from our parent outreach. And so as we grow as a school and we shift into a very inclusive school community, which means that we would have had students who would typically be in self-contained classrooms being in general ed classrooms. With that being said, we find that as that grows, we really have a need for more instructional assistant support, which is, I think, a district issue. There's just not a lot of people out there, but we would like to get some financial support to be able to hire a full-time inclusion instructional assistant to not only help our students with IEPs, but to help any student who needs help and create that really robust classroom environment to help students be successful and meet the diverse learning needs in all the classrooms. So we kindly request your financial support to fund this position. That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you again for the presentation, and I will go ahead and open up the floor to my colleagues for questions and comments.
Oh, wow. I love how much you love this. Like, it's just, it's plain as day. And it's really wonderful to see, honestly. Lots of things in here just really resonate. the focus on restorative justice, place to vent and share. God, I could use that some days. I mean, help me in. Having the metrics on the discipline incident. So it's not just like, oh, it seems like it's getting better. No, 30 to 5. Like,
It's
love
huge.
that.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing the numbers
Of course.
and obviously super awesome job getting those numbers to go in the right direction.
Thank you.
Interesting the approach on a dedicated place versus the Dolphin Cove versus in class. I'm be curious. To
Yeah,
learn a
so we do also have peace corners, calming
Yeah,
corners,
yeah.
in all the classrooms, TK through 8th grade. So this is just a space where if a student feels like the in-class supports aren't really helping or we have a lot of neurodivergent students. And so sometimes sensory input becomes a little too much for them. And so they just need to remove themselves from the space versus like, having a breakdown, crying in class or refusing to do work or just feeling like I don't belong here. It's obvious, right? So we want to like take that away and say, come to this space where we like remind you that we care about you, that we love you, that we believe in you, that you're going to be great because you are great and you're okay. Like, that sort of piece that you don't normally get in school is something that I recognize as a student I didn't have. And so I deeply want that for my students to know that they are still capable of amazing things, even if they feel that they don't fit in right in that moment. So due to that need, or students with anxiety who just need a space for someone to say those things to them, to like close their eyes on a couch, because we have a couch in there. And soft lighting and squishmallows. And so just a space with fidgets and lighting and, if they need soft music, we'll do that. But we're not undermining the rigor that's needed or the academic importance. But if we're never going to get there, if the students don't feel safe, valid or heard as an individual, that's important to the entire community. So it's there in different levels.
Fair. On the Yonder phone pouches, I was seeing there's been a couple different rollouts of that in the county, San Mateo High School and Design Tech High School here in Redwood City. And it seems like there's some pros and some cons, right? It seems like it does actually work in terms of increasing focus and academic performance. So it's what a school district is all about. So high fives there. But the students are not always happy with it. And there was an incident where a couple of students got expelled because
well, that's not good.
Yeah. So just, it may come with some friction, but seems like you're anticipating that. On page 19, the diagnostic 1, diagnostic 2, diagnostic 3, just are there dates for like, those are sequential dates for administrations of?
Diagnostic 1 is beginning of year.
Yeah.
Diagnostic 2 happens, I believe it's like October. And then diagnostic 3 happens before state testing.
Got it. It'd be helpful to have dates next to that, just so I get a sense of sequencing, but holy moly, those numbers are going up in the right and pretty steep angle. Like that is fantastic. Big fan of the call out on intensive K-2 focus on phonics and literacy. So excellent evidence. It's really hard to catch up after 3rd grade. And so getting everybody literate by end of 2nd, end of 3rd, if needed, it's very, very important. FYI, the Dolphin newsletter webpage archive only goes up to February 20th. So you may want to.
Well, one of my teachers hasn't updated it. She knows, but I have them there. They just have to be uploaded to her specific website. That's just where they're held.
Fair. That's just a name.
Yeah.
And speaking my love language with the parent, student, teacher joint goals. So I feel very heard.
Good.
Thank you.
I hear you.
And then also just working to make sure to keep the special education students in the classroom where that's able is also very well supported by Evan. So I love the metrics. I love that the metrics are moving in the right direction. I love the evidence-based and research-based work that's happening here. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, thanks, Jude, Tiffany, and Stacy. I really appreciate the presentation. I did have one question before we kind of dive into that. On the suspension strategies, you had a comment in there that like we knew that the physical proximity in our middle school was going to be an immediate need we needed to address. What did you mean by that?
So
yeah,
that's sort of the geographic setup, of the middle school being like upstairs and away in the hills, and the elementary being really nestled towards the front of the school. It's easy to forget that they're there And then every once in a while we'll get this, like last year we would get calls like from middle school, like, hey, we're here, we need you. And we're like, oh my gosh, that's right, you know, and I feel that our elementary community is rolling along really well. We don't really have enough evidence to show us that like strong administrative presence is needed. And so we recognized after reflection, hearing back from staff, that our priority needed to be that we're there. And to build a community, we have a lot of new middle school, not new teachers, but new to our school teachers in middle school. So us sort of leading and modeling the connections, relationship building, you know, watching us be present and being available at any given moment. So we prioritize our time upstairs in the middle school. So being right there, you know, with the kids, and, you know, the elementary teachers, because our offices are downstairs, had access to us right away.
Got it.
And, you know, the middle school teachers are sort of like up in the hills, and,
Got
you know,
it.
it wasn't intentional, but it was sort of just because of how it's set up. And so we recognized we really needed to be up there more.
Cool.
And our elementary teachers were very supportive of it, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Again, the Ripples magazine, I've only seen a couple issues of it, but it's great. So that is really neat to see that easing that you all put together there. It's really good. Thanks for the talking about the focus on the emerging bilingual students. It does seem like, you know, there's probably some growth there for the LPAC growth that we need to kind of focus on, but building out that community, the ELAC, putting all of that stuff in, and particularly as the population is growing at the school there. It was nice to hear about that kind of, hey, this is a priority. We know it. We're working on it. And that's neat. And the other thing that was kind of neat is like looking at it holistically, like, okay, rearranging the schedule next year, because that's going to be better. Because it's so awesome that you're doing all this direct work with students, but like setting up the system is really kind of like the power that administrators have, and being able to use that to really kind of get leveraged results after that. It's going to be kind of neat to see. Man, those Unity Day quotes, thank you so much for putting those in there. I read it over the weekend and I was just like, holy cow, you never know what someone is dealing with. You are never alone with the issues you're dealing with. Like, yeah, I hope I know that as an adult, you know, you know, but to hear it from our students, from your students, you know, from these students, it's just really powerful and it resonates.
It was just as powerful to see, because you would see kids who typically may be like less focused in class or kind of the jokester, really like listening to another person, which was wonderful to see too.
Yeah, it was powerful. And we've heard a lot about Unity Days and how they're working well, and
so great.
and how more schools want to bring them in. So that's really neat. You know, you didn't talk about, you mentioned NUA strategies and how they're really working there, but man, the work that y'all are doing at the school for adopting and bringing that in, for adopting, demonstrating, and evangelizing. It's getting recognition for the district. It's going out to other schools. We go and look at all of it. It's really amazing.
It's transformative.
All that work is just great. And it kind of goes back to, you know, how you started off your presentation with the switch from punitive to restorative, and talking about how it enables the student, it empowers them, it gives them their voice, and it lets them access their learning and education. And that's really what we want to be able to see here. So that is really, really cool. And the other thing that I didn't see covered here, but I know is going on there, I don't know if other schools are doing it, but your justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion team.
Our Jedis.
Your Jedis, I want to call them out for bringing, you know, a very inclusive curriculum to the students, introducing, you know, things that make all of our students feel like they're heard, they're seen, and they belong. Really important work, particularly, again, you know, coming out of the pandemic, we're such a different world than we were before. They always needed to be heard before, but now that work is there. I didn't see a single slide on it, so I wanted to make sure.
Thank you. Yeah, we have the Jedi.
Yeah.
And I love their name too.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and all the staff too. There's a lot of you out in the audience and online. So thanks for being here tonight. Just to piggyback on what Mike said, the quotes, I wrote down one of the ones he said, you never know what someone's dealing with. I love that. And I mean, as adults, I think we know that we're really not good at putting that in the forefront of our brains. So I think that's great that our students are thinking about it. I hope that they continue to hold on to that. So Jude, as long as I've known you, which I think is almost your whole time
Yes,
here
it
in the
is.
district,
Yeah.
you have been really focused on restorative justice.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of the forefront of what you wanted to do when it wasn't really the thing
Yes.
to do.
Yeah.
And I appreciate seeing that you're continuing that, you're building on that. You're still kind of at the forefront of, you are at the forefront of that. And kind of setting an example for our other schools and how it can work. I think when I first came on the board, there was a lot of resistance to that at a lot of the schools that I talked to, the staff and the administrators. So thank you for keeping up with that, even when it wasn't probably easy to keep that as a focus. Also with student voice and student self-advocacy. I think that you've always valued that, and I see that on the campus too. I think that Clifford, and you guys know this, the staff are doing a fantastic job with NUA and mastering the teaching strategies
Absolutely.
there. So I just want to thank the staff that have put the energy into that too.
It's them.
I think all of us have been into the classroom and witnessed it. So it's just phenomenal. And
it blows my mind. Like as a leader, it's amazing to see other adults grow and become leaders themselves. So yes, it's been learning for me too.
And longtime staff and teachers that I'm not going to call out by name, but might be in the audience that have said, I've been teaching for, I think it was like 24 years or whatever. I see heads turning and still embracing the NUA strategies has made this person a better teacher. So I love that.
Focus on pedagogy.
And then we'll move on, but I just want to say one of the things that you mentioned, Judy, you were talking about the community and your parents and your, I just want to acknowledge that the Clifford community has dealt with a lot of trauma this year.
It has, yes.
Some really deep trauma. And I have seen your staff, your families come together, support each other, build each other up. I've seen it on the Facebook page. And I just want to say kudos to all of you and to the parents and the staff, and just keep that up. I think it's part of the Clifford culture. And
it is.
I'm sorry that we've had to see that happen, but thank you all for supporting each other.
Of course.
This year.
Thank you.
All right, my turn.
Well, thank you so much. Of course, as you know, Clifford's near and dear to my heart. My daughters went there a long time ago, and I love seeing some of the teachers that I've known for a long time in the audience and online. And Jude, I've known you since day one. I can't believe it's been 9 years. That's amazing. And thank you, Tiffany and Stacy, for all that you're doing now as part of the leadership team. Really appreciate it. And it's so clear that, you care so much about the students and the families, and I know our teachers and staff do as well. And what an amazing parent community. It continues just to support the whole school.
Absolutely.
It's always been a parent community that doesn't care about just their own child, but cares about the whole. And that makes a big difference. I know that Clifford is a place where we do have a lot of students who maybe wouldn't feel a sense of belonging elsewhere, but do at Clifford. And that has a lot to do with all that you do, really providing that sense of belonging and then inclusivity, and then designing the classroom and the campus. So there's places where students can thrive and continue to be successful at school, whether it's in the classroom or the Dolphin Cove or, in your office or on the playground or wherever, chatting with you, and really just trying to keep the students at school learning and being successful. I really appreciate that. I definitely want to call out NUA, and I see that we have some of our amazing partners here, Linda, Stephanie, and Whitney. Thank you for being here supporting Clifford tonight. And, we've talked a lot about, Clifford is just such a model with the NUA program and how it's really just been integrated into the learning in the classroom, and the inspirational stories that we're hearing out of there, and what I've been able to see when I've been out visiting. I did talk about, my colleagues have talked about a lot of the other things that I wanted to touch on, and I know it's getting late, so I won't spend
a lot more time, but I just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate everything that you guys do every single day, and that's the collective
Yes,
here.
absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, again, thank you. And like everyone has mentioned, you guys are doing a wonderful job. I don't have too many questions, just more of comments and key words that I heard throughout the presentation. Of course, kindness being number one, and obviously your entire community. You mentioned during the tier 1 relationships, school-wide community circle. One of the big things is obviously your ELAC participation and the partnership. I think that's great. A lot of the times, sometimes we don't know. I take it back on a personal level. When my kids used to go to Roosevelt many years ago, my daughter's now 26. So they used to have a bilingual program. They ended that bilingual program. We had an ELAC, and a lot of the times parents don't know. And again, here we go with maybe our culture or the miscommunication or whatever. So that's dear to my heart, because again, I was once an English learner in this school district. So I think that's great. And one of the things that we all need to know as a community, and I think we all as board members here and cabinet, and obviously all the wonderful teachers that we have and staff, is that we cannot all succeed when half of us are held back. And I think that's very important for us to know. And I think we, as the Redwood City School District, are doing wonderful things. And so when a school leadership like you, and obviously this is all the school leaders that we've heard from before and the ones that are coming in the next few weeks, I think we're moving in the right direction. And so under tier 3, the target instructions with English and math. I mean, obviously there's some schools that struggle more than others. Again, Janet mentioned you guys have been having a lot of trauma. We've also have heard from the Bayside schools where they're actually struggling even more. So I think it's just kudos to all of you. I think you guys are doing a wonderful job. And again, just keep it up.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to change this a little bit. Number one, Stacy, you are going to be the MTSS person next year. I heard all these wonderful things about you.
Not at all.
All these wonderful things about the
Yeah.
reading program.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll still be dealing with, reading is always going to be my first love. It's
'Cause I-
always gonna be a part of who I am.
Teachers, parents, administrators about Stacy and the reading, Stacy and the reading. When I heard that, I go, okay, she's going to be MTSS.
We're ready for that shift, I think. So Stacey will have a role in, guiding that next
Right,
level of
right.
work. Yeah.
I just wondered, and thank you so much for what you've done this year. It's
Yes.
really, really.
Amazing.
Now, we do have some visitors with us
Yes, we
that would,
do.
I'm going to give them my time. So Dr. Montes and Dr. Baker, come on up, and also Whitney. That's another Dr. Baker. And Whitney.
Oh, boy, so much to say. I scripted myself. I scripted myself because I'm a talker by nature, and there's so much to say about this wonderful place. So I bring you greetings on behalf of the National Urban Alliance for Effective Education to simply and swiftly say thank you. I want to thank the dedicated members of this board for engaging in thoughtful dialogue around equity and pedagogy, and that has carefully guided our work in this district, in the other wonderful schools where we get to work, but specifically in Clifford School. I want to thank Dr. John Baker for the vision and consistent support for this work, and this work on behalf of the children of Redwood City School District and the adults who surround them. I want to thank Principal Jude Noyes. You heard what he said this evening, right? I want to thank him. Stay on the script, sorry. I want to thank Principal Jude Noyes and Clifford School for empowering teachers and staff members. And when I say staff members, I'd like to personally thank Whitney Aiken for being what we call the glue. The cement that holds it together between the times that we are here. Incredible effort. But I want to thank Principal Noyes for empowering teachers and staff members to engage in meaningful conversations about practice that have led to teacher-centered, pedagogical support that has prompted partner visitors from Minnesota, New Jersey, interested educational leaders from the state of California to just come and see what is happening in this magical place. I want to thank the dedicated teachers and staff members who have committed to centering all students, their voices, their academic pursuits, and for working tirelessly to advocate for them to participate in their own professional learning. Teachers who advocate for themselves and the things that they'd like to learn more about, which have made remarkable and data-supported differences in the academic trajectories of the young people at Clifford School. This evening, we would like to publicly thank this committed group of partners for welcoming the beliefs and practices of NUA's Pedagogy of Confidence with a certificate of achievement for each of our partner teachers. I will read one of them just for public record, and I'd like to give them all to Mr. Noyes this evening to share at the appropriate time. So I'm going to do that right now. I'll just read it so that you can hear what it says. Not all of them, just one. Here we go. It says, the National Urban Alliance for Effective Education proudly recognizes, insert teacher name, for your outstanding commitment and service to creating a safe and supportive, inspirational and rigorous, joyful and inclusive environment for all learners. Dr. Eric J. Cooper, NUA founder and president, Dr. Stephanie C. Baker, NUA executive director, and Dr. Linda Montez, NUA regional director, April 21st, 2023. In conclusion, we would also like to participate in the public display of our appreciation for exemplary schools. We make it a practice to do so in schools that exemplify the belief systems and practices of the National Urban Alliance. So we'd like to give this banner to the team of dedicated individuals at Clifford School, the students and the teachers and the leaders who you've heard from tonight, to simply say that we are indicating that the stakeholders at Clifford School are dedicated to leading and learning that support students in reaching the frontier of their cognition and sailing beyond it. So I want to say thank you to Clifford. Here's what the banner says. Let me get out of the way. Clifford Elementary School, an NUA demonstration school where learning and teaching for high intellectual performance happens every day. Thank you, Clifford. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you so much. Yeah, why don't we get the Clifford, Dione and Shannon come up so you can take a picture with the sign. Oh, and Shannon is one of our mentors. How are you going to do that?
Well, that's why it's like, should we?
Move the map banner in front of you all?
Sure. Oh, no, then we get.
That's fine.
Okay, all right, yes, John.
Okay.
There you go. Perfect.
You guys did good.
Making a movie already?
Very good. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you all, and these guys do make it happen every single day, and it's just a part of their practice, and like naturally what they're doing, I mean, we take it for granted because we see it every day here. It's exceptional. So I just wanted to.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Dismissed.
Yeah.
2 minutes is fine.
I need to come.
I know,
Look back.
2 minutes. 2 minute break.
We're going to take just a 2-minute break.
2-minute break. Okay.
I don't know how to turn it on. The batter, it doesn't have an on button. Oh, wait. There's another way. All right, 1, 2, 3. Okay. There we go. Awesome, thank you. Yay. You're a dolphin too.
presentation on Redwood City School District Bond Program. And then right before we have Mr. Chris Robel at the podium, I just want to read a script that before we get started, we need to make sure that our community is aware of the process for this item. Pursuant to Education Code Section 35145.5, we have a committee member who has requested to place this item on the board agenda. This Education Code section expresses the legislature's intent that members of the public be able to place a matter directly related to the school district business on the agenda of school district governing board meetings. The item needs to be directly related to the district business and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Tonight's speaker, Mr. Chris Robel, wishes to speak regarding the district's bond program. The district has the right to make certain procedural decisions regarding the timing and manner of placement on the agenda. As such, the following is the process for this item. When these requests are made, a board must only agendize the item, call the item, and allow the public comment. The board does not need to take action or discuss the item unless the board sees fit to do so. The district is not required to publish this item's background materials, as the materials are not produced by the district or endorsed by the district. The materials will not be projected through the use of PowerPoint or other technology, but hard copies may be shared with the members of the public upon request. Mr. Robel, you may proceed.
Thank you. Before my 10 minutes starts, I would just want to see, does anybody need a copy of the handout? Everybody has copies. Okay, okay. All right. Okay, thank you for this opportunity. I did want to just start off, to be blunt, I didn't appreciate and I was disappointed that the title of my presentation was edited. I kind of view this as it's legally it's called viewpoint discrimination. And I have an email to John and about this, but it's a violation of the First Amendment. So personal opinion, I mean, obviously that's not the title of what I did. Okay, so I have several topics. So if we just jump to page, let's go to page 3 or 2, I'm sorry. So my first concern is about insufficient transparency with respect to how bond money is spent. So on January 11th, you all approved what's called the superintendent subcommittees, which I didn't know anything about at the time. And there are several of them, and most of them comprise 2 trustee members. And so there's a workforce committee. The one I'm going to talk about is the bond construction committee. And essentially that's comprised of, like I said, 2 trustees, Mike and Janet, and then John, and it's got a vendor, RGM Kramer, 2 people from there, and some district personnel, Martin and others. So the issue with that is as I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like to me, and I did a public records request, there are decisions being made in private. The public has no awareness of these agenda items. These meetings take place. The public doesn't know about the agenda. The committee makes decisions about how bond money is used. And then there's no report out to anybody. All that subsequently happens is the decision, or if you want to call it a recommendation, but the recommendation goes to the board, but it's not a recommendation because all that shows up is a contract. So if you go to page 3, this is an example I pulled where this agenda with the people I mentioned, including RGM Kramer, who's was already paid over $800,000 to do project management for 9 months. He's in this, it looks like he is part of this committee. He's organizing the meeting and he sets up this agenda. And one of the agenda items is extending his contract for another $400,000. Now, I don't know if he's in this meeting. It looks like he was. Let me know if he's not. I would like to know if he was or was not, but this meeting's in the dark. The public doesn't know about it. And then there's no minutes. So then we go to the next page. That was on December 8th. Then we have on December 14th, it shows up on the board consent calendar. So there's no discussion amongst you trustees. There's no context for it. There's no, here, we want to pay RGM Kramer another $400,000, $1.2 million. There's no discussion of other vendors. Coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, he donated $30,000 to the campaign to tell voters how great Measure S is going to be. And so and I don't know if there were multiple bids. I have no context for it. That's a clear violation. Anyway, that speaks for itself, those facts. So everybody's aware of problems in Kenyatta College Community District, and I hope that we don't have similar problems here. But these meetings need to be in the open. The business of the people is the people's business, and the openness with the public is important. Page 5, Prop 39 compliance. So I have spoken with Nathan, who was here earlier this evening, and obviously Carl Landers. I don't know if Carl's online, but nobody's checking to make sure that there are compliance with Prop 39 laws. So that is not, there's nobody looking to say, hey, is this, Nathan, I mean, I just talked to him afterwards. So that's not something that's specifically there. And neither does Carl. I've been watching all the last several CBOC meetings, the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. They do not review any expenditures despite, and I did look at them, and there's 1,100 individual payments for district personnel for salaries, administrators. And I already spoke about what the law says. It does not allow school operating expenses. And there's a whole bunch of other things, copier leases and Bay Area News Group. I don't know how those are related to school construction, termite inspections. So all those things. So I would like to know who is determining Prop 39 compliance up front. So maybe it's the secret bond subcommittee meeting. I don't know who's doing that, but I would like to know, maybe Mike or Janet could provide some comments on that at the end. It's not right. It's just wrong. And you guys, the taxpayers deserve better. And then I'll go to the last slide. I have 5 more minutes. The Citizens Bond Oversight Committee appointments. Okay, the Redwood City School District has no procedures and no policies regarding how Citizens Bond Oversight Committees are appointed. And if you don't have a procedure, you don't have due process. It's a violation of due process. So you make it up. Legally, you are required to have Measure T CBOC positions, and including 3 member groups that have been vacant. There's no member from a senior organization. There's no member from a business organization representing the business community, and there's nobody from a local taxpayer organization. Now, I know that somebody thinks that Carolyn Chow, who's on a Palo Alto bond committee, she's Rick's counterpart, overseeing $1 billion bond program in another district, doing oversight. I think that's a conflict of interest. I've suggested that she resign, and because that's not an appropriate position. When she's overseeing bond money, is she really going to do oversight on this bond program? You've had, and Rick had mentioned that despite the lack of outreach from the Board of Trustees of the district to try and recruit these required by law vacant positions, I don't see anything that's been done on Measure T about reaching out. But Rick did say there were 3 or 4 applicants. I did apply. I'm a retired CFO. I mean, obviously I'm not going to do it now, but I believe you've had and I did fill one of those seats, and I didn't get the courtesy ever of, hey, Chris, we reviewed your application. We're not doing it. And I don't think either of the other people did either. It was somebody else that was here. She's not here, but she applied. She didn't hear back. So when city council reviews somebody, let's say for the planning commission, anybody that applies, whether they're qualified or not, those candidates those applications go up to the governing body for review. And this district, under John Baker's leadership, has never taken those CBOC applications to you to review. And that's just not right. He's just said, oh, we're going to roll over Measure T to Measure S, which again, Measure S hopefully won't even be an issue, but for other reasons. But there are no applicants. The Measure T is not conforming with the law. It's been more than 9 months for those vacancies. And Measure S, if it goes forward, Measure S is not even going to comply with the laws, because you still have 3 vacancies. So the call to action is on the last slide. Number 1, there needs to be a legal board subcommittee, not a superintendent subcommittee. Those subcommittees need to be opened up. Like I said, there's no reason that the public shouldn't be able to participate. Subcommittees need to produce a report for the board approval with the context, and was there multiple bids, and why are we picking this vendor, et cetera. Any vendors that are part of these subcommittees in the bond spending need to recuse themselves when appropriate. They should not be part of those meetings. Somebody needs to, you need to clarify who, if anybody, but somebody needs to legally make sure that the expenditures comply with Prop 39. I don't know if that's being done now or not. And you need to develop and follow CBOC appointment procedures, document how you're going to pick people. And certainly everybody that gets applied there should be a closed loop, and the board should be reviewing those applications. And then of course, the board needs to make sure those positions are filled and vacant. Otherwise you should return the money back to the taxpayers, the Measure T bond money. I guess I'm going to hope, and a lot of people told me, don't do this, Chris, because they're not going to say a word. They're going to say everything's fine. And maybe I have one thing wrong, but I don't have all of it wrong. And I want to hear, don't say everything's great, and don't say nothing, because I really want to hear. And John promised me that you guys would have 10 minutes of discussion on. I really want to hear your feedback, because there's always opportunities for improvement. Just like, and believe me, I care about this community deeply. I care about the kids in this community. I care more about the teachers and less about the developers and the administrators. And I wish this bond money would be foregone and use it for a parcel tax and for teachers. Anyway, so enough said on that, so that we can help. Everything that was highlighted, once again, just like with Taft and Garfield, with these teachers, is operating expenses. I heard math, I mean, everything in there. They're not talking about, I need another building. They need stuff inside the classroom. They need smaller, fewer students. I've talked to teachers that their classes are jammed and they're overworked, and they need to be paid more. It's not about buildings, it's about people and programs for kids. Thank you. And I really want to hear the feedback. Well, I don't want to get up. I'm not leaving. I want to hear that. We have 10 more minutes for you guys to ask. Please correct me or answer any questions. It's a discussion. So maybe we can start with the first one. I mean, I don't know. Legal, what's this deal with the RGM Kramer running these meetings, and why is the public not involved, and did they participate in the renewal of their contract? Mike, this is a discussion, right? That's what John said.
I said, wow, you're not saying exactly what I said.
Okay.
We were both in this meeting. What I said is, within this time lot, the board could have a discussion, not that they're required to have a discussion. Okay. Agreed?
No, well, it was 10 minutes for me presenting and 10 minutes of board discussion on this. So
if the board could have a
it
discussion.
was not an if. That's not what you said. But anyway, go ahead. I don't want to take up the time with this. So.
I mean, really, again, as I read the script, we don't have to have a discussion. One of the things that I want to say, just more of a personal, and I'm sure my colleagues would also agree with me, that we as a board do everything that we can possible to make the best for all the Redwood City School kids, including bonds. And I understand that you are talking about tax, what do you call it?
Taxpayers' money.
Yes, not the taxpayer money, but a property parcel tax. And of course, that's totally different. And so again, we don't have to comment. There is, obviously you bring up a lot of points, but I just want to make you aware that what we do as a board, it really is to the benefit of all the school.
Okay, but I'm talking about, okay, I understand. So but is there anything specific here you can address? Can we talk about the RGM Kramer, the secret, how are decisions made about bond construction? Who makes them, and why is the public not allowed?
I'll just say that, every decision comes to the board. If you look back from 2015 is when the bond was passed. And if you look at all of our board agendas, we have been approving one thing after another, after another, after another. And it's all in the public forum. Anybody can come to the meeting. They can join us virtually. They can join us in person. They can comment on each agenda item. And so I actually, one of the reasons why maybe not everybody's talking is I don't really want to go point by all the different things that you're critical about, because I actually believe that we do have a lot of internal and external accountability around the bond measure. It's pretty clear you don't like bond measures, and I can appreciate that. You have a right to not like bond measures. I feel like they're absolutely important in California if we want to keep our school facilities up and running for students. And in fact, just last week, I was reading about some school districts that unfortunately do not have communities that are supportive of bond measures. And so you know what? Their school buildings are falling apart. Okay. And kids cannot learn in buildings that are falling apart. And so I am absolutely proud of the work that we've done with Measure T. And I actually find it kind of offensive that we have had to spend so much time answering questions, public action requests. I mean, all this stuff. You've come into the community, within the last year, and I think you think something nefarious is going on. And yeah, exactly. So you believe that, and you're an individual, you have a right to believe that. But I will tell you that if anybody's wasting taxpayers' money, right now it's you. I mean, you have spent, I actually asked for the amount of money. I'd like to know how much money we've spent on you, giving you all the information that you've requested. Not only is our staff busy, we've had to hire legal staff to respond to you. Absolutely. And so just know that actually you are spending taxpayer money that could be going to students. Okay. And so anyway, I don't really want to go point by point and all your things. You know, I appreciate you coming here, giving us this information. Certainly we can think about what we're doing and how we can do a better job, but I am proud of the work that we've done.
It's not a philosophical issue of are bonds good or bad. Forget about that, right? People can disagree on things. That's fine. The issue I'm talking about is how I think everybody, whether you're for or against bonds, the decision about how the bond money is spent, hundreds of millions of dollars, should be out in the open. And it's not. I mean, I just printed this right here. The RGM. Did you see page 4 and 3?
If you look at our board agendas, every one of these expenditures are in the board agenda. Look at them. We've got contracts, we've got board memos, we've got MOUs, we've got contracts. It's all in the board agenda.
Look at page 4.
It's all public.
I mean, specific. There's no context about why you're hiring RGM Kramer for 1.2 million. There's no context about it was done in private. He's part of the meeting apparently, along with two of you, and it comes forward for 1.2 million. Why him? Why not another vendor? I mean, there's no context of this. And I'm an equal opportunity fiscal watchdog. The city's just spent $1 million on furniture. Okay. They're gonna looking at a new tax as well, right? $1 million on furniture for 500 employees. And I, you know, at least they had a report justifying their position. I mean, I disagree with it, but I was, you know, like they did a report and said, here's why. But there's no report about why this RGM Kramer, who's, you know, it looks to me, and I'm not accusing, but based on my public records request, it was not bid out to multiple people, and it's pay to play. He donated to the campaign, and now he's getting this huge lucrative contract, which looks to me pretty rich. Everything I'm doing is for the community. I'm spending hundreds of hours doing free oversight of you to help the community, and I view it. I don't appreciate you saying I'm costing the money. I'm saving the money because I'm saving the district. Countless amount. Anyway, that's an opinion.
Hi, is it a board discussion? Okay.
Yes.
It's a board discussion. So I'm going to say 100% of the expenditures on Measure T have come to the board, including expenditures under $20,000 each, which don't have to come to the board, but we still review it all. If it's on consent, we have every right to pull it and have a discussion if we would like to. We have the opportunity ahead of time to ask questions of staff if we have them. If we choose not to pull it from consent, it's because we don't have questions on it. It's fine. We want to go ahead and approve it efficiently. You have wasted taxpayer dollars, many hours of staff time that could be spent on student achievement. And yet instead, they're spending time pulling items, trying to help you find the smoking gun that you believe is out there and you can't find because it's not there. We are working in the best interest of the taxpayers. It is what it is.
Well, anyway, we're not done yet. I will just say okay, so this school, if you look at your school accountability report card, spends 29% of your overall budget on teachers and things inside the classroom. That's because you have 17 schools with all these. Anyway, that's a broader topic.
We have 12.
Okay. So it's 29% of your overall spending, according to School Accountability Report Card, is on things in the classroom, teachers and academic programs. That's way too low. There's too much fixed costs and overhead on things that are not related to helping student outcomes. And to me, I'm glad you're listening to the teachers, and I hope you listen to what they say and invest in what they're saying, not what you think. And Janet, respectfully, I know the stuff, it has to be legally on the board, you have to approve it, but there's no discussion about it, there's no context about it, and it's millions of dollars on these bond, obviously.
Can I just say that it used to be, so when we started the whole bond measure, so you just moved into our community a year ago. So what you're
No, I didn't.
seeing,
It's over 2 years.
okay, so 2 years.
years.
Okay. So we actually did our facilities master plan back, kind of 2013 to 2014. We did the bond measure in 2015. Initially, we had so many much longer, deep, lengthy discussions at board meetings, in the community, around all of this stuff. And in fact, most of the agenda items around the bond used to be on action because it was new. We were getting a lot of public comment, stuff like that. So since you've come in, yeah, so much more has been on consent agenda because we are trying to focus on student achievement and teachers and all the stuff that you say you care about. But absolutely everything is in the public. So I actually find it offensive that you continue to come to our meetings and tell us that somehow we're doing all these things that are secret and not transparent and not accountable and not legal and all of this. And in fact, we check with our legal team, and in fact, they are legal. And so even the stuff around salaries, how do you think the bond's going to get done if you don't have people overseeing the work? I mean, absolutely, it's clear that you can have the bond monies be used for the people who are they're part of the bond. I mean, if you don't have people doing the work, there's no bond, there's no facilities happening. So anyway, I mean, we could go on and on. This is exactly why I didn't want to have this point to point, because we could spend hours doing this. So anyway, we've heard your information, and
I will, I guess I will, if you're going to have, you're going to have the subcommittees. I realize this doesn't all get done in the board, each discussion, but the subcommittees should be open to the public. That's more important than Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. Forget about Bond Oversight Committee. It's a sham and a farce, right? And Carl Landers has said so much. So it is, he agrees with me. They don't do anything. They've never reviewed expenditures. Disband it and don't pretend there is any. It's a meaningless, fruitless exercise because it's already been spent. The money up front, when you're deciding what to do, that's what's important. And that meeting should be open because that's when you're making the decision to buy something of hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's closed, and you're not sharing it at the board. You're showing,
so let me just say once again, if you go back and our meetings in 2015, 2016, we had so many public meetings where we had huge lists. We prioritized all the different projects that we were going to do. What you're seeing now is an implementation. So of course you missed that whole years. I mean, talk to any community member who's been around. You were a part of it, and before you were a board member. So the point is, we prioritized. I mean, all of that happened. So what you're seeing on the agenda, yeah, it's contracts, it's money being spent, because a lot of those decisions were already made, right? It's just a timing of what's going on
with RGM Kramer for $1.2 million back in 2015 to spend it exclusively with RGM Kramer and not look at other bids.
We looked at other bids. We looked at it.
Oh, we absolutely. I mean, back in 20.
We actually interviewed. We came in. It was in this room here. We interviewed. I don't know how many different companies.
Right.
But you don't lock them in for 5 years. You renew just like you do with your anyway. Okay.
So just to clarify, are you suggesting that we should have hired a new company as we're closing out the very end of our Measure T bond?
He's doing project. I'm suggesting that you look at all your contractors and bid them out multiple, I mean, he's just de facto being rolled over, just like everything else. And when you renew your insurance, do you reassess it and say, can I get a better rate with someone else periodically? I don't know.
I need to know from our staff, we were absolutely following all the rules and regulations around contracts. I mean, Rick, can you attest to that?
Of course he's going to.
I mean, well, yeah, because you know what? These are the educators, these are the professional team that we trust to do the work, right?
All right.
So I do need to make one point of clarification because I hear this continually and it's misleading to the public. The Measure T CBOC committee, the board did approve to roll over to the Measure S CBOC. Why? First of all, the Measure T CBOC committee asked for that. And I asked them, and you were there in the room. I specifically asked them, the board would like to know how many of you are interested in continuing. Well, guess what? And you know this, almost every single one of them have been on the CBOC for less than a year. They've been to 2 meetings. Why would they sign up for 2 meetings and want to be done?
There's
What,
nothing, there's
what is wrong with continuing them over to Measure S?
Okay. There's nothing, you need to continue having, it has to be a documented process. If that's the process, fine. You have to have a process so that, what about the three or four other people that applied? Are they not, and they actually meet the requirements? You're legally not adhering to the law because you don't have a senior person, you don't have a business organization person, you don't have a taxpayer person.
Okay, you didn't answer my question.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that process if it's a defined process, but you can't have, it's Measure T is not compliant, so therefore Measure S is not compliant because you have openings. There's nothing wrong with moving them over if.
Well, that is your opinion, Chris. Okay. I mean, the other thing and why I was concerned about the presentation is that we could go back and forth about all sorts of things. I mean, you have an opinion about something and you may say it's not legal or we're not doing this, whatever. We have a different opinion. We could say absolutely. Okay.
Okay, Rick will agree that those groups are not represented. They're vacant, right? They're vacant, see? So they're vacant and they have to be filled. There's a statute in California Constitution, California Education Code 15, I forget the number, but it requires those 3 seats to be filled. And if they're not filled, you can't spend that money. It's law. I mean, you have to have those seats. I shouldn't say it. I don't know the consequence, but those seats are required by law to be filled. Right, Rick?
There is a requirement to fill them, but there is no penalty of not spending the money if they're not filled.
Okay.
Just to clarify, we did have those seats filled and people rolled off of them. They've been difficult to fill because frankly, people don't want to, volunteer for committees, especially when we have community members that come and harass the way that you have, even including the CBOC committee.
Okay.
I've been there. I've heard what you
Then you don't need to go with me, but I believe there are 3 or 4 others and I believe they represent those groups. So why were they not followed up on? Why was that not presented to the board for consideration? I mean, it's a lack of due process, and it's also an issue of respect. When somebody applies to help, not me, but anybody, they should be owed the favor if they're volunteering to help the community. Say, I'm sorry, we're not going to take you, even though you're filling one of the required seats. Anyway, enough said. I would check with your lawyer if he thinks it's okay to not fill those required seats,
Well, my understanding is we are going to fill them. We're on a timeline to do so.
It's been vacant for more than 9 months, so they haven't been filled since before, August. I don't know how much further before August, but those have been vacant. And it's the board's responsibility to fill those positions. And they've made as far as I know, you've made no effort to do that. That's, but anyway.
Have the applications.
You can check with Mr. Tunick and Janet Mueller on that. Okay.
Moving along to item 10, consent items, and with the exception, of course.
We have a speaker card for 8.2, Eliza Dixon.
She's on.
Oh, Elise Dixon?
No.
Then
So again, moving along with item 10 consent agenda items, and with of course, the exception of 10.19 that was pulled for action. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It goes. We make it first.
And then moving along to item 11, action items, because we are moving 10.19. And we do have a speaker's card for that. Lillian Rosillo.
Push press.
There you go.
Hi, my name is Lillian Russi O'Connor. I am a teacher. And I came to talk to you about the proposed calendar that I think you just approved. I'm here tonight to speak to you about it. My biggest concern is in November. The proposed calendar doesn't give teachers 2 full days to conference with families, as it has in the past 9 years that I've been teaching here. Doing conferences in the fall, as we do them normally in the spring, where minimum days are released for an entire week, will not work. First of all, that is not nearly enough time, as fall conferences are mandatory, meaning that all teachers must meet with all 25 plus of their students. Getting out an hour early will not allow me and most teachers nearly enough time. That means that I can only meet with 4 families each afternoon, giving me 20 minutes with each family. Another reason that teachers need 2 full conference days in the fall is that it will not be equitable across all the schools. A quick look at the RCSD website, I looked at 3 different school bell schedules, which gave me 3 different amounts of time. Adelante Selby gets out 60 minutes early on early release. Roosevelt, 55 minutes early. Roy Cloud, however, gets 95 minutes out early on early release days. As you can see, Roy Cloud teachers have a larger advantage here in prep time and ability to conference, whereas Roosevelt and Adelante, and I'm sure other schools won't. Roosevelt especially will struggle with 40 minutes less to meet with their families. And yet another issue is that some families use this week off as time to travel to see their families. I'm not sure about any other teachers, but I did see it in the Clifford and Roosevelt presentations, but attendance has been an extremely difficult issue for me as a teacher, and I'm sure many others. And I foresee there would be a much larger drop in attendance that week, since families have historically, for at least the last 9 years, have had the entire week off of conference and are able to go visit families far away. My final point is that if this is proposed calendar is passed tonight without 2 full conference days, teachers would be forced to offer limited times to families and have to turn away some families if they were already full. 4 families, 5 times, that's only 20 families. It would not allow me. And next year I'm slated for about 30 students. Many teachers will not be flexible and understanding and make time, since the district and board have given them that professional respect. For example, in the past, I have been very flexible with my families. I have met with parents later in the day to accommodate working families, sometimes even conferencing at 5:30 or 6 o'clock at night, or by phone at home at those hours. Or I've met with families the week prior because families informed me that they were traveling, but would still like a conference. On a final note, I will say I am not pleased that 2 extra PD days have been added to the calendar in August. I am aware that a survey went out, but 1, I don't remember seeing the data of the outcome of that survey. 2, it was ill worded. And 3, I don't believe a majority of the teachers or staff replied, which does not give a full representation of what the majority of teachers and staff want. I think I'd prefer to have the choice of those 2 extra PD days than to be forced to do them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Could one of you just talk about the expectations around conferences? And because I know we're sort of switching it back to what we used to do. So I don't know if somebody could just speak to that.
Sure, we're planning on bringing back the goal setting conferences. And so students will be working with their teachers and their parents to talk about setting goals for the year. And so we're going to be holding those conferences in October. And then in the end of the first trimester, the report cards will be sent home. There won't be additional conferences just to go for the report cards, but the conference are making a switch to a goal setting conference.
And so those will just happen then in October.
In October. Mhm.
Over time, like on the prep days or
There'll be a week of minimum days.
A week of minimum
Yes,
days to do
for
that. Okay.
conferences. Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope that helps, Lillian, that there is time in them.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would just like to add, on top of what Liz had mentioned, that the memorandum of understanding made with RCTA completed the survey, and is responsible to sign an MOU should it come to fruition, was based on the fact that after looking at thorough data over the course of the fall time period, it was determined that we needed to change the structures of parts of the calendar, including moving to goal conference week. And then also adding 2 more professional development days, which will be in August because of various needs that are happening curricular wise and so forth and ongoing. And so that was an agreement that was made and actually is attached to this board memo, which I'll speak about in just a moment.
And I guess I just want to say, because obviously she's the only one speaking here tonight, but I just wanted to maybe understand, obviously, being that she is the only teacher, but we have many teachers, is that because the information was misread, misinterpreted? And I'm just curious, obviously she's bringing up a point, but when, like you said, the survey went out to the RCTA staff and they voted, obviously the recommendation is based on the MOU.
Right. Well, can I continue forth with this particular agenda item? Because I can speak to that then. So this calendar has had quite a journey, I have to say. Not always very positive, I have to say. And really because over the course of a year and a half, there have been priorities that have come forward of importance. Aligning with Sequoia Union High School District was heard loud and clear to accommodate families and staff with students and so forth for the, the concern about absenteeism and students missing school. And so there have been continuous conversations with both unions about these changes. Most recently, as I mentioned in the fall, this change in regards to a need of 2 additional PD days and restructuring the conference week in the fall. It used to be minimum days years ago and so forth. So the conversations that ensued, RCTA is sort of responsible for going back and talking to union members about that. And then through the agreements of adding the 2 days, we came up with this MOU. It is the district's prerogative and priority to determine how conferences occur in our district. So it was determined that the best course of action moving forward was goal setting conferences and trying this in an October week. So RCTA does not set minimum days. That's the district's decision to do that based on what's best for students. So the adding of 2 days is a separate conversation than the 2 days of conferences. The adding of 2 days was part of the MOU and with a cost involved, right? It's about approximately 1.07% increase to teacher salaries plus 2 work days. So they're paid for that time. Separately, a decision was made about conferences in which consultation is not required, certainly not union negotiations regarding that matter, but a decision based on the need for an instructional change. And so that's why that was determined to be. So the 2 days that were typically conferences were moved to the additional PD days, the November 1st and February 5th for that purpose. RCTA teachers have 180 instructional days with students. And prior to this MOU, 7 non-instructional days. 2 of them were conference days. We're now changing to 180 instructional days to 9 non-instructional days and switching the model of conferences. Did that help answer that question, Cecilia, then? Okay.
And then will the minimum days follow the site's minimum day time, or will it be normalized across all the different schools? Because I think that was another question that came up.
I think that time frame is still being worked out, and the discussions about the time needed for those meetings.
Yeah.
In a committee that Liz Wolf is overseeing with input from teachers and so forth.
Okay.
So I don't have final answers on that yet. And I do want to also point out about the minimum days that is contingent upon transportation, which we're about to hear about. So there is a reason and a rationale on why these differences of times occur. I wish it weren't the case, but that is a fact in regards to busing students.
Yeah, I mean, setting it, and Lillian, thank you for coming and speaking tonight and having this item pulled into a discussion. I mean, setting a calendar, it's challenging. There's a lot of, as you mentioned, there are a lot of concerns to be able to put in there. I do like the switch to goal setting conferences. I think that that's a good, we've heard very positive feedback from SIPSAs that have included goal setting or involved students in the student voice and bringing in the family voice as well into that. And I think that that's going to be a positive experiment. So I know that there's a lot of challenges and things to balance in a calendar. Family needs, staff needs, student needs, but I do think that that conference change is one that I'm interested in seeing going forward next year.
Thank you. I do want to point out that just for communication purposes, as we were getting late into the year, I did send this draft calendar noting that it would be coming to the board tonight for approval to all employees at least 3 weeks ago, certainly it's in March. So I heard favorable feedback. I personally did not receive unfavorable feedback. However, we're never going to please all the people all the time, but I can just speak to my experience.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention, thank you, Lillian, again for coming tonight and expressing your concerns. And I think you're hearing the feedback that's coming. But I know that when I looked at it, there was a few things like I was like, oh, I bet we're going to hear from people once they sort of get the calendar next year. But I think it's important, Wendy, and you said this, but what did you have that you've had multiple negotiations with the two unions, and this has gone round and round. So as you just said, I mean, there's a lot that goes into a calendar and nobody's going to be perfectly happy with it, but it does seem to meet the needs of what we need for next year, right? So I'm willing to support it, even though there's a few things here and there that I'm like, oh, I would do it differently if I was queen for the day, but I'm not queen for the day. So anyway, I appreciate the union really working with you to come up with a calendar. It may not be perfect for everybody, but it's got sort of, what we need in terms of for the student achievement and such.
I appreciate that. I do especially want to thank CSEA. CSEA's work calendars are driven by the instructional calendar, and there are many classifications. And so on Friday morning, my wonderful director of HR, Erin Kakos, and myself will be sitting down with CSEA to once again have a conversation about the final work calendars for all these classifications. So that will be quite, and we've been waiting for this moment, assumingly this will move for approval, because the desire of the board was to consider the alignment of Sequoia. And when we do that, based on the variations of their calendar and ours, to make it as perfect as we possibly can, it comes with some cons. And, one of them is the end of the year date and so forth, but we did meet the goal to have these breaks aligned. So thank you I appreciate the input, and I appreciate the patience of our unions as well as we work through it.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the calendar.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Or calendars, I guess, because there's also, right, there's multiple calendars. Do you second all of the calendars?
I second to approve 1019. Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. 11.1, approval of declaration of need for 2023-2024.
So this is an annual request that we make at this time of year in forecasting staffing for next school year. So we are seeking approval for this for the anticipation of staffing concerns over the summer. And I don't say that lightly. My staff has been working nonstop, probably 60% of their time focused on recruitment. And we have a long way to go, about 97 unfilled positions, 57 being hard to fill. So I wanted to, make sure this was here in advance for if and when we come to a situation in which we need to draw upon the state approved waiver process in order to fulfill the various positions around the district.
Yeah, and I've been hearing from my colleagues up and down the state that, just every school district is having issues right now, except for maybe the few super, super wealthy ones that can, pay a lot more than some of the rest of us, but it's up and down the state. Doesn't matter, Central Valley, Southern California, Northern California. So anyway, thank you for all you're doing and thinking proactively. And I'll make a motion to approve this if there's no questions.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
11.2, recommendation for adoption of mathematics curriculum materials, grades K through 8.
Ms. Wolf.
We recommend that the materials be adopted. We had, as you saw on the board item, there was a couple of comments and those have been responded to, but that was the only feedback that we received. And can I just say too, another reason for these 2 days, we want to again thank Wendy and the negotiating team. 2 of those days for before school starts are going to be training on the new materials for K through 5. And so this allows the time for the teachers to have a chance to work with their materials prior to the beginning of school, which would have been more difficult to find otherwise. So we're appreciative of having the professional development that will come as part of our package and having the time to actually give the teachers a chance to dig into their new materials.
Great, thank you. Does somebody want to make a motion?
I'd like to move to adopt this math curriculum.
Yeah, but and before I second it, it was nice to see the presentation in the boardroom. It's been out for the 30 days. It's over there in the corner right now. Being able to look at it, having some of the family support material linked onto the board agenda. That was kind of nice to look at it from like, hey, this is how families are going to be able to adopt it. I know my fractions, but it was still really neat to see the way that it's taught there and how it's drawn illustratively in a way that I was like, wow, that's really easy to understand. So with that, I will second the motion.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
11.13, approval of the Redwood City School District Transportation Service Plan.
Here comes Martin. Maybe it's or
Good evening, Superintendent, Cabinet, Trustees, and community. RC is, well, as you see in your board memo, this is a new state mandate that we have to put two ed codes into our transportation plan. RCSD is pleased to offer transportation services to all eligible students attending our schools in special education. Newcomers. Sorry, I'm trying to new technology here and it's my contacts are dry. Newcomers, homeless, foster youth, and overflow. Special needs students have a priority to receive transportation services. Transportation is offered through individual IEP by our in-house bus drivers. This new education code, the 39800.1 and 41850.1 plan is a long-term and ongoing planning process that needs to occur. The plan outlines this current year and the status, but in the order to meet the need of the 3,586 unduplicated students, if everyone wants to choose to use transportation services, we would roughly need 64 buses and 64 bus drivers for this coming upcoming school year. The average cost for a 6-hour bus driver is estimated at $68,000, roughly $4.3 million. This is including benefits and not including any negotiation settlement for this school year or the next. The current cost for an electric 66 passenger estimated cost is about $500,000. So roughly about $32 million. The reason I talk about electric buses is following the new California Air Resource Board mandate from 2018. Bus fleets need to be zero emissions by 2040. We do not have the funding nor the personnel to accommodate the amount of students. We have been increasing the numbers every year. One is the after-school program, working together with our community partners. We're expanding for the next school year by offering transportation from Garfield to McKinley. We will need to revisit with our team and increase the budget as needed. That's it for me. So we're hoping that you can adopt that. new transportation plan. That plan was, we had committees, we've had meetings with Samtrans, we've had committees with the community, staff members, and River City personnel. And this is the transportation plan that we came up with.
Rick might answer my question. I was gonna ask, like, this is new funding, right? Like that's coming in here, so.
So, thank you, Martin. A great explanation and certainly, when you hear the costs associated with providing additional transportation is daunting. This is new funding, based on last year's funding. And it's going to go on, and there'll be another plan that will be brought back next year. I will say, the implementation of this from the state has been a little shaky, right? Up until January-ish, early February, there were no templates to create this plan. There was no direction given by the state to do this other than you're going to receive this money. Good luck and have a plan done, right? Was basically the word on the street, if you will. And then a couple of COEs, or one larger school district and a COE down in Southern California developed a template that kind of went viral, if you will, statewide, and then adapted by district to district. Still with many questions by everybody about what this really means when you look at some of the language. We've certainly heard over the course of the last several months from almost every school site, transportation gets mentioned to some degree or another. And I think that's part of the work of this moving forward, is taking that input and seeing how we can move some of these dollars that we are being allocated to help out in those circumstances, right? We don't have to transport all of our unduplicated. It's clear in the language that they have free access to existing or available routes, right? So we still have to continue to look at our bus passes and the other means that we have to help facilitate this. I'm not going to say become better partners, but probably just partners in general with Samtrans in a different way, working with them as well to help alleviate some of the future consequences of some of these actions. Many, if not all of you will remember Senate Bill 878, which would provide home to school transportation for every student, regardless, right? If they requested it, they got it. That died in committee last spring or last fall. Yeah, last fall. But this is another attempt to ensure that we get those students to school by providing these resources. So this is a plan in motion, if you will. It will have to evolve over time, between now and the next year, taking into account all the information that we've received to try and utilize the monies the best that we can to provide the most services to the families that need it the most.
Yeah, so one of the questions that I had, and Martin, thank you for getting back to me, when you look at this total expenditure at $3.266 million, of course, my first question is that all coming out of the general fund, which I knew some of it wasn't, because I know that some of the capital outlays, we've been getting grants, there's a lot of monies available to upgrade your fleets to EVs and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to confirm, Martin, that in your response to me, and maybe you guys can just clarify this, is it about $1.5 million out of the general fund, and then the rest of it is taken care of by monies that are specific for transportation or grants or whatever?
1.5 is for next school year.
For next school year. And so for this year, it was less.
This year was 1.2.
Yeah, it was less because we're going to be doing more next year.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that was sort of what I think it's important for us to understand that we'll be spending 1.5 million out of the general fund. The rest of the funds are coming from grants or sources that are specific for transportation.
Correct.
Yeah. And it is a chunk of money for us, but as we talked about and heard from the principals tonight, it's really important to get kids to school. So, and I will say, my Safe Routes to Schools work, and Martin's been a part of that. Unfortunately, Samtrans changed their bus routes, took out a lot of the school routes, and even changed the ones that are not specific to schools, but that our kids could ride. And several of us did a lot of advocacy around that, including that one volunteer parent we have, Meredith. Is it Meredith? Yeah, Meredith Parks. And unfortunately, they're also facing budget cuts and other sorts of things. So we lost a lot there. So I actually think that at some point it would be great as a county for us to do some advocacy, all the school districts in our county, working with Samtrans. They have the buses, they could hire the bus drivers. We need their support. And anyway, that's a longer term project, but I just want to put that out there that I really believe we need to be working with Samtrans.
Absolutely. That'd be a.
And we've
collective-
tried, but
Yeah.
they're also under similar budget constraints. And thank you, Martin and Rick, for putting this together.
Yeah, thanks for putting it together. I think one of the things from the SIPSA report, and also I'd heard from one of a parent at Henry Ford, is just that there's not total clarity on where the buses run and things like that. And I think we even heard it like, oh yeah, there's the Haas bus, but it's only for the displaced students, not, so those kind of things. So I don't know if that's, when I saw a plan, I thought, oh, here's the plan and it's going to be, these are the routes that are running. And that's not at all that we're talking about here, but I don't know if that will be part of like making that more readily available for people to understand.
So I think what we need to do is sit down and talk about who these children are, where they live. And like I said previously, the piece that is a bit daunting for us is there's only certain places where those buses can stop.
Correct. Designated.
That's why it was always, you come to your home school, where the school site is, the bus come in and pick up the kids and go. So yeah, we need to find out who and how many.
Yeah, and I think like that's part of the evolution that I was talking about, right? Is because right now I know there's a lot of people going, well, we don't know what we're not here, but just in general, what this money is going to mean this year based on last year, based on next year, that might be based on this year, that type of thing. And then going through whatever other requirements they'll tag to this along the way, that there's still some uncertainty about, right? What could change between now and the next time we have to bring this plan formally to the board.
I have a decidedly unhelpful comment. So I just said the total, including the amounts that we get from the grants and the likes, is 3.3 million. Wow, that's a large number. 587 students needing transportation. Was that correct? What I
Just
saw
we're currently transporting.
that we're currently transporting.
There's
Yeah.
probably more that would like it, but that's the.
Yeah.
Fair. But just dividing it out, I get about 5,500 a student a year, which seems like a lot of money. Like we should be able to do a lot of different things to get students to school for $5,500 per student per year.
Go ahead, Rick. 'Cause I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, I would be careful with that, David, just because this was a one-off year with the $2.063 million that wouldn't normally be there. Our real cost for, like Martin said, was about 1.2 million. And then you'll also notice on there, 185,000 is from the LCFF calculator based on 2014 school year that's never been changed since then, right? So this is an add-on to that, but that 185,000 comes out of our community funded model property taxes, right? So and that's why the 536,000 as 60% is not 60% of 3.2 million, right? For those reasons. So considerably less, on that equation scale. But certainly, yeah, there are things that we can look at moving forward to address some of these needs or attempt to address some of these needs. One of the things, and Martin, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we have either 19 or 20 buses.
19 buses.
And we have 10 in service right now. Not all for the fact that they're broken and they can't run, but also there's hiring issues, right? And employee attract and retain, right? I mean, they'll get training and move on, that type of thing as well, that Martin's experienced over the course of the last several years that we.
That makes a lot of sense. So I have a follow-on further unhelpful comment, which is we're here in Silicon Valley. And my hope would be that we could reach out to someone like Cruise, for instance, or Waymo and see about doing a pilot for having electric self-driving cars pick up our kids and drop them off at our schools.
There's a problem with that legally right now.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how many.
I checked into it because he brought it up last time.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you checking into it. We can follow up on that.
She got, give us time, give it time, it'll come, but right now.
Okay, maybe not 2023.
I don't know how many parents would be comfortable having their child pilot a self-driving car. I don't know.
I suspect that acceptance rates for these things will change over time.
Yeah.
But,
Sure.
okay.
As a parent of a student who needs transportation to school, I would politely decline the self-driving vehicle.
All right, just saying, like, I would love for us to be creative. Transportation is a real need. I'm not trying to quabble that, right? We're willing to spend real budget to solve real transportation needs. We have people who have unmet transportation needs. We've got principals saying like, we have transportation needs. I believe it. So let's figure out how to solve it. Let's also like just see how creative we can get in different ways to solve it, and that they're going to be different for different students, right? And I get that. That's all. End of unhelpful comments.
No, it was a good
No,
thought.
it's
I
good.
mean, it's coming. She did say it's coming, but
It might not be 2020.
Right.
Yeah, and of course, this transportation plan is more focused on our motor vehicles or, you know, that sort of thing. And then we have this whole other effort that's going on about how to get kids carpooling or
Walking.
bicycling or walking or, you know, scooters. All right, well, I'll make a motion to approve the transportation plan.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, it's 10. Yeah.
Well, we're just almost done, so.
We're probably in like 10 minutes, so I think we should probably vote to extend it.
Just
Okay.
extend it.
Maybe have it extended 20 minutes, so 10:35 and we should be done by then.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and take a vote to extend the meeting since it's already 10:14. And our board policy says so after 10 o'clock that we should. So does somebody want to make them?
And I think we have to say until what time? So do you want to say 10:35, 10:45, something like that? 10:45?
I mean,
10:45. We'll be done by 10:45. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm gonna make a
We'll be done.
motion that we extend our meeting till 10:45.
thank you.
I'll
Mike.
second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye. No, it's good board governance practice to
Yeah.
do that. It's our policy. So good job, Mike, noticing.
Great. So item 12, board and superintendent's report. Who would like to go first?
Had my first meeting with KIP. That was today. That was very nice, just to get acquainted with them. And I'm looking forward to setting up a time to tour KIP as well.
I attended the Chamber Education Committee meeting. There was Senator Becker was there that gave reports. That was kind of neat for the first half hour. I got to give a report on our Stanford partnerships, and then our county superintendent McGee said just flowing things about the NUA example, the upcoming partnership for the Gateway Center. Like there was just a lot of positivity coming, and so that's just a testament of the relationship that you're building there. Yeah. So.
All right, so we had a board policy committee meeting just yesterday, I believe, and so you'll be seeing 9 policies or something coming up soon. Let's see, I've had a couple of, again, annual education conference committee meetings, and I did want to just mention that the opportunity to put in a proposal is out there. You probably got something from CSBA. So if there's anything you want to present on, you should put in an application. It's due, I think, in early May. And then I had an opportunity to be a part of a virtual meeting with the LA School Boards Association. I think they're called something slightly different, but it's basically the Los Angeles School Boards Association. And we were actually talking about climate action, and I was talking about some of the work that CSBA has done, and there were some other groups. But anyway, that was kind of fun to be virtually with our Southern California colleagues, so I enjoyed that. Cecilia and I met with one of our high school district board trustees who just had a lot of questions and wanted to get to know our district. because we're a feeder district. So that was positive. We haven't had too many of them reach out to us recently. So I thought that was a great meeting that we had with her. And then Redwood City Together, in coordination with Silicon Valley 2, SV2, had a wonderful community event. Were you, Cecilia and I were there. I don't think you were able to make it.
Another meeting.
That's what I thought. You were at another meeting. But Cecilia, maybe you can talk about it when you get to your turn. But I thought that was really a wonderful event. We had hundreds of people there, all sorts of community members coming together, along with donors and volunteers from Silicon Valley who are really interested in helping our community. Janet.
So I think mine have been covered otherwise, but I did attend the induction committee meeting. I don't know when it was. Nicole Crawford led that, and she did a great job. It was just she presented to the committee on, it's an annual presentation on what induction does, and the committee asks questions and gives feedback, and that was that. So that's all I have.
Same thing, both items as Alyssa mentioned. And so it was great to go back to the Redwood City Together celebration. It was great to see many people from Santa Clara and to know that they've provided Redwood City Together with this, I believe, 246 million. Was that the grants? Was that?
Yeah, they're providing grant money that will go to Redwood City Together, but also to some of the local community partners. Maybe you remember, John, I thought it was 250,000.
I think it's 250,000. Yeah.
Was it 2.5 million?
No, I don't think.
I don't remember.
Okay. I don't remember the exact amount, but and obviously I
we'll look at that and
believe,
report back. But anyway, it's
yeah, and I believe it was from like 7 different organizations, and they decided to help out Redwood City Together. I did speak to one of the ladies from the Silicon Valley venture, and I said, you won't regret giving them the money. I mean, Redwood City Together are doing a really great, doing great things with our community. So it was a great event. Again, they had some performances, dialogues, opportunity to talk about amongst people on the table. So it was just great.
Let's see if I can find it, because I have a meeting with, I have Redwood City Together tomorrow. Let's see, I know I worked on the agenda with him Monday. Let's see if it's in here. It's CV2, right? Yeah, it's 200. It's 200.
About 200,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Which goes a long ways when it goes out to community-based organizations. Yeah.
Okay. The only thing I have is from the I had a meeting yesterday with CBHIP. It's the HIP program with the San Mateo County, and that's the people that are helping us with our grant that we submitted. It's done. MOU's done. It should be on my desk tomorrow or the day after. I'll sign it and it'll go. So we will be getting 450,000 for this year. The first half of it will come by the end of May. I have to start working on that first half, spending it for the Wellbeing Center. So, and then I found out yesterday, I'm going to try and pull it up. The other portions of the dollars that we're getting a portion of is for behavioral health specialists. We wrote it and we got it. And for ourselves and South San Francisco, and that's like another 200K that'll be coming. And so
good job, rainmakers of the district.
so that's really good. So we will start bringing that group together again so that we can talk about the Wellbeing Center. Stanford is helping us again, definitely putting together a draft plan. And then we will start looking for the location. And also what they did say yesterday is if you want to start hiring personnel, go ahead and start doing it once I sign the MOU. So. Good, I'm glad we got it. It's done, it's done, it's done. That's it for me.
Great. So moving forward, information items, quarterly Williams report for the third quarter, January 2023 through March of 23. Is there any questions? No? Okay. And then correspondence. I know that we've gotten a few emails. I believe we might have all gotten an email from an Odyssey parent regarding
Right,
TK, and then
So I need to look into that. I know I had a question from Elisa on that and regarding Odyssey. Remember you sent that to me? Someone sent it to me and it's about the Odyssey program.
Oh, right.
And I need to look into it, get more information before I respond. I will do that.
There were some emails on the transportation. I don't know how many people got it, but a couple about the transportation one, but I think we addressed it in the whole discussion today. And then there's a Roosevelt PTA parent that had some clarification around what Roosevelt's ask would be for playground funding for Measure T.
I didn't get that one, but and then the other one that I think we might have gotten was regarding the dyslexia from Giselle. Yeah, so
We have a meeting with Giselle on Friday,
okay, thank you.
Liz, myself and her team.
Great. Any other business suggested for future agenda?
The only thing I have is a reminder. We do have closed sessions next week on April 26th. So we need to start at 5:20. I was looking at him because okay, no, wait, that's not just the closed session. That's not just the closed session. And then we have a study session that you asked for beginning at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
That's for CBOC roles and responsibilities from County Council.
Cool.
Okay. So that's why we're starting at 5:20 with the closed session for negotiations. Right.
And safety.
And the safety plans, right? The safety plan needs to come and it has to go into closed session before it goes to open session. And then also 6 o'clock, we start a study session on CBOC roles and responsibilities by County Council, and then into our regular board meeting at 7. We'll have snacks and stuff. We'll bring snacks and so forth. Yeah. No.
If you have any allergies or restrictions, please let me know before I go buy some snacks.
Okay, and then moving along, so item 16, board meeting calendar. Are there any changes? No?
No.
Great. Well, it's 10:26. Does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, I beat you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.